Bedtime Reading. Around the World in 80 Days. Chapter 1. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout accept each other, the one as master, the other as man. In 1872, Mr. Phileas Fogg lived at No. 8 Savile Row, Burlington Gardens. He was a member of the Reform Club, but he did not attract attention. Little was known about him, except that he was a man of the world. He was certainly an Englishman, but it wasn't known whether Phileas Fogg was from London. He had no public occupation. No ships came with his name, and his voice was never heard in a court. He was not a manufacturer, nor was he a merchant or gentleman farmer. He did not belong to any of the many London societies. Phileas Fogg was a member of the Reform, and that was all. Was Phileas Fogg rich? Undoubtedly. But those who knew him had no idea how he made his fortune. He did not show off his wealth, but he wasn't stingy. He was the quietest of men. Had he traveled? It was likely, since he seemed to know the world. He often corrected, with a few words, the guesses of other members of the club. He must have traveled everywhere, at least in spirit. It was certain that Phileas Fogg had not left London for many years. His only hobbies were reading the papers and playing whist, a card game. He often won, but he never kept the money. He always gave his winnings to charity. Phileas Fogg was not known to have a wife or children, nor relatives or close friends. He lived alone in Savile Row, and no one visited. A single servant worked for him. He ate breakfast and dinner at the club, always at the same time. He never ate with other members, and he went home at exactly midnight. If to live in this way is strange, it must be said that there is something good in strangeness. The house in Savile Row was very comfortable. The owner asked little from his only servant, but Phileas Fogg required him to be extremely regular. On this very 2nd of October, he had dismissed James Forster because that youth had brought him shaving water at 28 degrees instead of 30. Phileas Fogg was waiting for his new servant. There was a knock at the door, and a young man of 30 entered and bowed. "You're a Frenchman, I believe?" asked Phileas Fogg. "And your name is John?" "Jean, if monsieur pleases," replied the newcomer. "Jean Passepartout. My family name suits me because I often go from one business into another. I've had several trades. I've been a singer, a circus rider, a professor of gymnastics, and a fireman in Paris. I left France 5 years ago to come to England, and I heard Monsieur Phileas Fogg was the most exact gentleman in the United Kingdom. I have come to Monsieur in the hope of living a calm life, and even to forget the name Passepartout." "Passepartout suits me," replied Mr. Fogg. "You are well recommended to me. You know my conditions." "Yes, monsieur." "Good. What time is it?" Passepartout took a very large silver watch from his pocket. 22 minutes after 11, he said. "You are 4 minutes too slow," said Mr. Fogg. "No matter. Now, from this moment, 26 minutes after 11 a.m., this Wednesday, 2nd October, you are in my service." Phileas Fogg got up, took his hat, and left without a word. Passepartout remained alone in the house in Savile Row. Chapter 2. Passepartout thinks he has found the perfect job. "Faith," said Passepartout, "I've seen livelier people at Madame Tussaud's." Madame Tussaud's people are made of wax. They are often visited in London. During his brief interview with Mr. Fogg, Passepartout carefully observed him. He appeared to be a man about 40 years of age, with a handsome face and a tall figure. His hair was light, his face pale, and his teeth splendid. Phileas Fogg seemed to be perfectly balanced. He was so exact that he was never in a hurry. He never took too many steps, and he always took the shortest path to his goal. He lived alone, and with no social relations. As for Passepartout, he was a true Parisian of Paris. Since he left his country for England, he had searched for the perfect master. He was an honest man with a pleasant face. He had a good round head, such as one likes to see on the shoulders of a friend. His eyes were blue and his body strong. It was impossible to know if the new servant would be as regular as his master required. He had been a drifter in his early years, and now he wanted a different life. So far, he had failed to find it. He had served in 10 English houses, but he always found his masters irregular. At 11:30, Passepartout found himself alone in the house in Savile Row. He inspected it without delay. The house was clean, well arranged, and calm, and it pleased him. On the second floor, Passepartout found his room, and he was satisfied. Near the fireplace there was an electric clock, exactly like the one in Mr. Fogg's bedroom. They both kept the exact same time. "That's good," said Passepartout to himself. Over the clock was a card showing the daily routine of the house. It had all the details the master required, including tea and bread at 23 minutes past 8 and shaving water at 37 minutes past 9. It included everything that needed to be done from 11:30 a.m., when Phileas Fogg left for the Reform Club, until midnight, when the gentlemen returned. All of Mr. Fogg's clothes had a number showing the time of year and season in which they were to be worn. The same system was used for the master's shoes. There was no study, nor were there books, since the Reform Club had 2 libraries. Passepartout found no guns or hunting weapons anywhere. Having inspected the house from top to bottom, he smiled and said joyfully, "This is just what I wanted. Ah, we shall get on together, Mr. Fogg and I. What a regular gentleman! A real machine. Well, I don't mind serving a machine." Chapter 3. Phileas Fogg has a dangerous conversation. Phileas Fogg shut the door of his house at 11:30, put his right foot before his left 575 times, and his left foot before his right 576 times. At 20 to 6, his usual whist partners arrived: Andrew Stewart, an engineer, John Sullivan, and Samuel Fallentin, bankers, Thomas Flanagan, a brewer, and Gautier Ralph, one of the directors of the Bank of England. "Well, Ralph," said Thomas Flanagan, "what about the robbery?" "Oh," replied Stewart, "the bank will lose the money." "I disagree," Ralph said. "I think we will catch the robber. Skilled detectives have been sent to America and Europe." "But Have you got the robber's description? Asked Stewart. In the first place, he is no robber, returned Ralph positively. What? A fellow who makes off with £55,000 is no robber? No. The Daily Telegraph newspaper says that he is a gentleman. It was Phileas Fogg who said this. The affair they talked about occurred 3 days ago at the Bank of England. A package of bills worth £55,000 had been taken from the banker's table. The Bank of England is very trusting. There are no guards protecting the bank's riches. It took some time to notice this theft. As soon as the robbery was discovered, detectives left for Liverpool, Glasgow, Havre, Suez, Brindisi, New York, and other ports. A reward of £2,000 and 5% of the amount recovered was offered. As the newspaper said, the thief may not have been a professional. On the day of the robbery, a well-dressed gentleman was seen entering and leaving the room. A description of the man was sent to the detectives. I still say, said Stewart, that the chances are in favor of the thief. Well, where can he go? Asked Ralph. No country is safe for him. Oh, I don't know. The world is big enough. It was once, said Phileas Fogg. What do you mean by once? Has the world grown smaller? Stewart asked. Certainly, replied Ralph. I agree with Mr. Fogg. The world has grown smaller, and that is why the search for this thief will probably succeed. Stewart was not convinced. Just because you can go around the world in 3 months. In 80 days, interrupted Phileas Fogg. That is true, gentlemen, added John Sullivan. Only 80 days. Here is the estimate made by the Daily Telegraph. From London to Suez, via Mount Cenis and Brindisi, by rail and steamboats. 7 days from Suez to Bombay by steamer. 13 days from Bombay to Calcutta by rail. 3 days from Calcutta to Hong Kong by steamer. 13 days from Hong Kong to Yokohama, Japan, by steamer. 6 days from Yokohama to San Francisco by steamer. 22 days from San Francisco to New York by rail. 7 days from New York to London by steamer and rail, 9 days. Total, 80 days. Yes, in 80 days, Stewart said. But that doesn't account for bad weather, winds, accidents, and so on. All included, replied Phileas Fogg. What about Hindus or Indians? They could stop the train and kill the passengers, replied Stewart. All included, calmly replied Fogg. You are right. Theoretically, Mr. Fogg, but practically... Practically also, Mr. Stewart. I'd like to see you do it in 80 days. Shall we go? Good heavens! I would wager £4,000 that such a journey is impossible. Quite possible, sir, replied Mr. Fogg. Well, make it then. I will at once, but you will pay for it. Well, Mr. Fogg, said Stewart, it shall be so. I will wager 4,000 on it. All right, said Mr. Fogg. I will wager 20,000. "£20,000!" cried Sullivan. £20,000 which you would lose by a single accidental delay. "The unforeseen does not exist," quietly replied Phileas Fogg. "You are joking." "A true Englishman doesn't joke when talking about a wager," replied Phileas Fogg. "I will bet £20,000 against anyone that I will make the tour of the world in 80 days or less, in 1920 hours, or 115,200 minutes. Do you accept?" "We accept," Stewart, Fallentin, Sullivan, Flagon, and Ralph said. "Good," said Mr. Fogg. "The train leaves for Dover at 9:15. I will take it this very evening. I shall return to this very room on Saturday, the 21st of December, at 9:15 p.m. A note of the wager was written and signed. His friends were uncomfortable because they did not like to make such a difficult bet with their friend. At 7 o'clock his friend suggested he make his preparations. "I am quite ready now," he calmly said. "Let's play cards." Chapter 4. Phileas Fogg astonishes Passepartout, his servant. After winning £40 at whist, Phileas Fogg left the club at 25 minutes past 7. Passepartout, who had studied his duties, was surprised to see his master at this early hour. Mr. Fogg went to his bedroom and called Passepartout. There was no answer, so he called again. Passepartout appeared. "I've called you twice," observed his master. "But it's not midnight," replied the other. "I know. I don't blame you. We start for Dover and Calais in 10 minutes. Monsieur's going to leave home?" "Yes," replied Phileas Fogg. "We are going around the world." Passepartout was astonished. "Round the world?" he said quietly. "In 80 days," said Mr. Fogg. "So we haven't a moment to lose. We'll only take a bag with some clothes. We'll buy clothes on our way. Bring me my raincoat and some good shoes." Passepartout tried to reply, but couldn't. He made the preparations. Around the world in 80 days. Was his master a fool? No. Was this a joke? They were going to Calais. Good. Passepartout had not returned to France for 5 years. He would be happy to see it again. At 8 o'clock, Passepartout had packed the bag. Mr. Fogg was ready. Under his arm he had a copy of Bradshaw's Continental Railway Steam Transit and General Guide, which had timetables of steamers and railways. "Have you forgotten anything?" he asked. "Nothing, monsieur." "Good. Take this bag. Take good care of it, for there are £20,000 in it." They took a cab to the railway station. Before they entered the station, a beggar woman with a child approached and asked for some money. Mr. Fogg took the £40 he had won at whist and gave them to the beggar. "Here, my good woman, I'm glad I met you." Passepartout was touched by his master's action. 2 first-class tickets were bought. The 5 friends were there to say good-bye. "Well, gentlemen," Mr. Fogg said, "I will return in less than 80 days." The night was dark, and Passepartout was still astonished. Suddenly he cried out. "What's the matter?" asked Mr. Fogg. "In my hurry, I forgot to turn off the gas in my room." "Very well. It will burn at your expense." Chapter 5. All of England discusses the wager. Phileas Fogg suspected that his departure from London would create excitement. The news created many conversations in the Reform Club, and it soon got into the papers throughout England. Some people supported Phileas Fogg, but most did not. It was impossible, they declared, that the tour of the world could be made in this short time. The Times, Standard, Morning Post, and Daily News, and 20 other highly respectable newspapers, said Mr. Fogg's project was foolish. Many articles were written, for geography is one of the favorite subjects of the English. Some women supported him, and Phileas Fogg became more popular when the Illustrated London News printed his portrait. Finally, a long article appeared on the 7th of October. The Royal Geographical Society looked at the question from every point of view and showed the foolishness of the plan. Everything was against the travelers. They needed a perfect agreement of the times of departure and arrival, which was impossible. It was possible in Europe, where the distances are not so long. But Phileas Fogg was going to cross India in 3 days, and the United States in 7. A single delay could ruin everything. The article was read by many people, and the tourist supporters were worried. Everyone knows that England is the world of betting men. The public made large wagers for or against Phileas Fogg, like he was a racehorse. After the article, however, no one would bet for Phileas Fogg. Lord Albemarle, an old gentleman, was now the only supporter of Phileas Fogg left. He said, "If the thing is possible, the first to do it ought to be an Englishman." Everyone was going against Fogg, and the bets stood 150 and 200 to 1. 1 week later, an incident occurred which made him lose all his supporters. At 9 o'clock one evening, the chief of police received this telegram: "Suez to London. Rowan, Chief of Police, Scotland Yard. I've found the bank robber, Phileas Fogg. Send warrant of arrest to Bombay. Detective Fix." The gentleman was now a bank robber, and his picture was examined. His face matched the description of the robber perfectly. It seemed clear that the wager was made to hide his departure from the detectives. Chapter 6. Fix, the detective, is naturally impatient. The telegram about Phileas Fogg was sent during this situation. The steamer Mongolia was due at Suez at 11 o'clock a.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of October. It regularly went between Brindisi and Bombay through the Suez Canal. It was one of the company's fastest steamers. 2 men were walking up and down the port. One was the British consul. The other was a small man with a nervous face. The small man looked impatient, and he could not stand still. This was Fix, one of the detectives sent from England to find the bank robber. He hoped to get the reward. "So you say, consul," asked he for the 20th time, "that the steamer is never late?" "No, Mr. Fix," replied the consul. "The Mongolia has always been on time. But really, I don't see how you can recognize your man from the description you have." "A man feels these people, consul. If my thief is on board, he'll not escape. How long will the steamer stop at Suez? 4 hours, long enough to get in her coal. She goes directly from Suez to Bombay. Good, said Fix. If the robber is on board, he will get off at Suez. He won't want to travel through India, which is English soil. Unless, objected the consul, he is very smart. An English criminal always hides more easily in London than anywhere else. The detective thought about this, and the consul left to his office. Fix, left alone, was more impatient than ever. Fix's thoughts were interrupted by a loud sound. The Mongolia had arrived. There were many passengers, and most of them left the boat and came into town. Fix carefully examined each face. One passenger came up to him and politely asked him if he could point out the English consulate. The passenger held out a passport. Fix took the passport and saw that the description in the passport was identical with that of the bank robber. "Is this your passport?" asked Fix. "No, it's my master's. He stayed on board." "But he must go to the consul's in person so as to prove his identity." "Oh, is that necessary?" "Yes, it is." "I'll go and fetch my master, who won't be much pleased to be disturbed." The passenger bowed to Fix and returned to the steamer. Chapter 7 Shows that passports are useless to detectives. The detective quickly went to the consul's office. "Consul," said he, "I believe my man is a passenger on the Mongolia." Fix told him about the passport. "Well, Mr. Fix," replied the consul, "I shall not be sorry to see the thief's face. But perhaps he won't come here. A robber doesn't like to leave evidence behind, and he's not required to have his passport signed. If he is as smart as I think he is, consul, he will come. To have a visa put in his passport? Yes. Passports are only good for annoying honest folks, and aiding the flight of thieves. But I hope you will not give him a visa." "Why not? If the passport is real, I have no right to refuse." "Still, I must keep this man here until I can get a warrant to arrest him from London." "Ah, so that's what you want." "But I cannot—" The consul did not finish his sentence, because 2 strangers entered the room. One was the servant Fix had met, and the other held out his passport. The consul took the document and carefully read it. "You are Mr. Phileas Fogg," said the consul. "I am." "And this is your servant?" "He is, a Frenchman named Passepartout." "You are from London?" "Yes." "And you are going—" "To Bombay." "Very good, sir. You know that you do not need a visa and that no passport is required." "I know it, sir," replied Phileas Fogg, "but I wish to prove that I came by Suez." "Very well, sir." The consulate signed the passport, and Mr. Fogg left. "Well, he looks and acts like an honest man," replied the consul. "Possibly. But don't you think he matches the description of the robber?" "Yes, but you know all descriptions—" "I'll make certain of it," interrupted Fix. "The servant is French, and can't help talking." Fix started off in search of Passepartout. Mr. Fogg returned to the boat and took his notebook, which contained: left London, Wednesday, October 2nd at 8:45 p.m. Reached Paris, Thursday, October 3rd at 7:20 a.m. Left Paris, Thursday at 8:40 a.m. Reached Turin by Mont-Cenis, Friday, October 4th at 6:35 a.m. Left Turin, Friday at 7:20 a.m. Arrived at Brindisi, Saturday, October 5th at 4 p.m. Sailed on the Mongolia, Saturday at 5 p.m. Reached Suez, Wednesday, October 9th at 11 a.m. Total of hours spent, 158 plus, or, in days, 6 days and a half. Chapter 8. Passepartout talks too much. Fix soon joined Passepartout. "Well, my friend," said the detective, "is your passport stamped with a visa?" "Ah, it's you, monsieur," replied Passepartout. "Thanks. Yes, the passport is all right." "And you are looking about?" "Yes, but we travel so fast that I seem to be journeying in a dream. So, this is Suez?" "Yes." "In Egypt?" "Certainly in Egypt." "And in Africa?" "In Africa." "In Africa?" repeated Passepartout. "Just think, monsieur. I had no idea we would go farther than Paris. All I saw of Paris was an hour and a half through the windows of a car." "You are in a great hurry, then." "I am not, but my master is. By the way, I must buy some shoes and shirts. We came away without trunks, only with a bag. I will show you an excellent shop." "Really, monsieur, you are very kind." They walked off together, Passepartout chatting as they went. After a few minutes, Fix said, "You left London quickly, then?" "Yes. Last Friday at 8 in the evening, Monsieur Fogg came home from his club, and 3/4 of an hour later we were off." "But where is your master going?" "Always straight ahead. He is going around the world, and in 80 days. He says it is on a wager, but I don't believe it." "Mr. Fogg is a character, is he? Is he rich?" "No doubt. He has a large amount of brand-new bills with him. He doesn't spare the money, either. He offered a large reward to the engineer of the Mongolia if he gets us to Bombay early." "Have you known your master for a long time?" "Why, no. I started work the day we left London." The detective was already excited, and these replies made him even more so. Fix was sure Phileas Fogg was the thief. Fix hurried back to the consulate. "Consul," said he, "I have no longer any doubt. I have spotted my man. He passes himself off as a strange man who is going around the world in 80 days. Fix told the consul about his conversation with Passepartout. "What are you going to do?" asked the consul. "I'll send a message to London for a warrant to be sent to Bombay. Then I'll follow him to Bombay and politely arrest him." Fix left the office and went to the telegraph office, where he sent the telegram we have seen. A quarter of an hour later, Fix was on board the Mongolia and in a few moments the steamer was on the Red Sea. Chapter 9. The Red Sea and the Indian Ocean help Phileas Fogg. The distance between Suez and Aden is exactly 1,310 miles, and the company allows the steamers 138 hours. Due to the engineer, the Mongolia was likely to be early. Most passengers were going to India. There were many army officers, rich young Englishmen, and ladies on board, and when the sea was calm, they listened to music and danced. The Red Sea is windy, though, and the long boat sometimes rocked. The women went downstairs, but the ship went on. What was Phileas Fogg doing all this time? If he was worried, he did not show it. No event could surprise the Reform Club member. He did not look at the ancient towns on the shore. What did he do? He ate 4 meals every day and played whist. Passepartout enjoyed the voyage. He ate well and slept well, and he was very interested in the sights. He still thought his master would quit his journey when they reached Bombay. The day after leaving Suez, he was happy to find the person he had talked to in the city. "You are the same person I talked to in Suez, yes?" he asked. "Ah, I recognize you. You are the servant of the strange Englishman." "Yes, monsieur." "Fix." "Monsieur Fix," said Passepartout, "I'm happy to see you here. Where are you going?" "Like you, to Bombay." "That's great. Do you know India? Is it a curious place?" "Yes. Temples, tigers, snakes, and elephants. I hope you will have time to sightsee." "I hope so, Monsieur Fix. A smart man should not spend his life jumping from steamer to train, and from train to steamer again. These games will end at Bombay." "And Mr. Fogg as well? I never see him outside," asked Mr. Fix. "Yes, but it's not curious at all." After this, Passepartout and Fix talked together often. Fix wanted Passepartout to trust him, so he often bought the servant beer in the bar. The Mongolia pushed forward quickly. On the 13th they reached Mocha. Passepartout was amazed to see this famous place. The next night they passed through the Strait of Bab el Mandeb, which means the Bridge of Tears in Arabic. The Mongolia stopped to get coal in Aden. This delay was known, so it did not affect Phileas Fogg's plan. Besides, the Mongolia was 15 hours early. Mr. Fogg and his servant went into Aden to have their passports stamped with a visa. Fix followed them quietly. Mr. Fogg returned to the ship immediately, and Passepartout walked about the town. Very curious," said Passepartout to himself when he returned to the steamer. "I see it is not useless to travel, if a man wants to see something new." At 6 p.m. the Mongolia left Aden. On Sunday, October 20th, they reached the Indian coast. At 4:30 the steamer was in Bombay. Phileas Fogg was playing his 33rd game of whist, which his partner and he won. The Mongolia was due at Bombay on the 22nd. She arrived on the 20th. This was a gain to Phileas Fogg of 2 days since he left London, and he wrote this fact down in his book. Chapter 10. Passepartout is happy to only lose his shoes. Everybody knows India is 1,400,000 square miles, and it has 180 million people. Britain controls most of it, and it has a government general in Calcutta and governors in other cities. But British India is only 700,000 square miles and has 100 to 110 million people. Much of India is still free from British control. The famous East India Company was all-powerful from 1756, but now the British Crown has direct control. The country was changing every day. Before one had to travel in India by horseback or on foot, but now steamboats traveled the rivers and railways crossed the country. The main line travels from Bombay to Calcutta in 3 days. The passengers of the Mongolia went ashore at 4:30 p.m. At 8 the train would start for Calcutta. Mr. Fogg said goodbye to his whist partners, told his servant not to miss the train, and went to the passport office. He did not care to see the wonders of Bombay, like its famous city hall, its great library, its markets, or its temples. Fix had gone on to the Bombay police station. He told them that he was a London detective, and he explained the situation of the robber. He nervously asked if a warrant had arrived from London, but there had not been enough time. Fix was disappointed, and he tried to get a warrant from this station. They would not, because only London could give a warrant for a crime in London. Fix did not insist. Like Passepartout, he thought Fogg would stay in Bombay. Passepartout, however, now knew they would leave Bombay as they did Suez and Paris. He began to think they might go all the way around the world. Passepartout walked about the streets, watching the different people. Unhappily for his master, he saw a beautiful temple on Malabar Hill. He did not know that Christians could not enter some Indian temples, and that even the Hindus must leave their shoes at the door. The British government punishes those who break these rules. Passepartout went in like a tourist, admiring the beautiful decorations. Suddenly he was knocked to the ground by 3 angry priests, who took his shoes and began beating him. The Frenchman stood up and knocked down 2 of the priests and ran out of the temple. At 5 minutes before 8, Passepartout rushed into the station. He had lost his hat, shoes, and a new package of shirts and shoes. Fix had followed Mr. Fogg to the station and decided to follow him to Calcutta. Passepartout could not see the detective, but Fix heard him tell Mr. Fogg what happened. "I hope that this will not happen again," said Phileas Fogg coldly. Passepartout sadly followed him on the train. Fix was going to follow them when he thought of a better idea. "No, I'll stay," he said. "A law has been broken on Indian soil. I've got my man." The train gave a sharp whistle, and it passed out into the darkness of the night. Chapter 11. Phileas Fogg pays a lot of money for a strange way of traveling. The train had started on time. The passengers included officers, government officials, and merchants. Passepartout rode in the same carriage with his master, and a 3rd passenger sat opposite them. This was Sir Francis Cromarty, one of Mr. Fogg's whist partners on the Mongolia. Sir Francis was a tall, 50-year-old man who was a general in the army. India was his home now, and he knew the customs and history very well. But Phileas Fogg did not ask about these subjects. Sir Francis had studied his companion, and he wondered if Fogg had a human heart at all. After leaving Bombay, they soon reached the mountains. Sir Francis said, "Some years ago, Mr. Fogg, you would have been delayed at this point. You probably would have lost your wager." "How so, Sir Francis?" "Because the railway stopped at the base of these mountains, and the passengers had to cross on foot or horse." "This delay would not have hurt my plans," said Mr. Fogg. "I would have expected it." "But, Mr. Fogg," Sir Francis continued, "you might have some difficulty about Passepartout's adventure at the temple." Passepartout was asleep. "The government is very strict. If your servant were caught—" "Very well, Sir Francis," replied Mr. Fogg. "If he had been caught, he would have been punished, and then he would have returned to Europe. I don't see how this could have delayed me." During the night the train left the mountains, and the next day it went into the flat country of the Khandish. Passepartout woke, and he could not realize that he was crossing India in a train. The train passed farms and villages, and later jungles with tigers and snakes. Elephants watched the train as it passed. At 12:30, the train stopped at Burrampur. The travelers had a quick breakfast and started off again. Passepartout was quietly thinking. Up to his arrival at Bombay, he hoped their journey would end there. Now, as they crossed India at full speed, his mind changed suddenly. His old traveler's nature returned to him. The fantastic ideas of his youth took hold of him. He believed his master now, and believed in the wager. He began to worry about possible delays, and he worried that he might have ruined everything the night before. He was not calm like Mr. Fogg, so he was restless. He counted and recounted the days that passed over, and he became angry when the train stopped. The train entered the Sutpur Mountains in the evening. The next day Sir Francis Cromarty asked Passepartout what time it was. Passepartout looked at his watch and replied that it was 3 a.m. This famous watch, always set to London time, was at least 4 hours slow. Sir Francis corrected Passepartout's time and said that he must set the time since they were travelling eastward. As when Fix suggested it, Passepartout refused to reset his watch. It was foolish, but it could harm no one. The train stopped at 8 o'clock. The conductor shouted, "Passengers will get out here!" Phileas Fogg looked at Sir Francis Cromarty for an explanation, but the general did not know why they stopped in the forest. Passepartout rushed out and returned quickly, crying, "Monsieur, no more railway!" "What do you mean?" asked Sir Francis. "I mean to say that the train isn't going on." The general stepped out, and Phileas Fogg calmly followed him. They went to the conductor. "Where are we?" asked Sir Francis. "At the town of Colby." "Do we stop here?" "Certainly. The railway isn't finished." "What? Not finished?" "No. There's still 50 miles to be laid from here to Allahabad, where the line begins again." "But the papers announced the opening of the railway throughout." "What can I say? The papers were mistaken." Sir Francis was extremely angry. "Sir Francis," said Mr. Fogg quietly, We will look for some way to travel to Allahabad." "Mr. Fogg, this delay is very bad for you." "No, Sir Francis, it was foreseen." "What? You knew that the way—" "Not at all. But I knew that some trouble or other would sooner or later arise on my way. Nothing, therefore, is lost. Already I have gained 2 days. A steamer leaves Calcutta for Hong Kong at noon on the 25th. This is the 22nd, and we shall reach Calcutta in time." There was nothing to say to such a confident reply. Most of the passengers knew about the stop, and they began to find carriages, horses, and carriages drawn by oxen. Mr. Fogg and Sir Francis Cromarty searched the village from end to end, and came back without finding anything. "I shall go afoot," said Phileas Fogg. Passepartout said, "Monsieur, I think I have found a way." "What?" "An elephant. An elephant that belongs to an Indian who lives but 100 steps from here." "Let's go and see the elephant," replied Mr. Fogg. They soon reached a small house. An Indian came out and brought them to the elephant's pen. The elephant had not been raised for work. Instead, the owner had raised it for war. The Indian had tried to give him unnatural violence, and had succeeded halfway. The beast, named Kyomi, could travel rapidly for a long time. They had no other choice, so Mr. Fogg decided to hire him. But elephants are not cheap in India, and the males are more expensive. Mr. Fogg offered £10 an hour, but the owner refused. £20. Refused. £40. Still refused. The Indian was tempted. If it took 15 hours to reach Allahabad, the owner would receive £600. Phileas Fogg then offered to buy the animal and offered £1,000. The Indian saw he was going to make a great bargain and still refused. Sir Francis Cromarty took Mr. Fogg aside and begged him to think before he went further. The gentleman replied that he had a bet of £20,000, and the elephant was necessary. He would pay 20 times his value if he needed. Returning to the Indian, Mr. Fogg offered first 1,200, then 1,500, 1,800, £2,000. Passepartout turned white. At £2,000 the Indian agreed. "What a price for an elephant!" cried Passepartout. They found a driver, which was easy. The driver put 2 seats on the side of the beast, and Phileas Fogg paid the Indian. He offered to carry Sir Francis to Allahabad, which the general gratefully accepted. Food was purchased at Colby. Sir Francis and Mr. Fogg took the seats on either side. Passepartout sat on the cloth between them, and the driver sat on the elephant's neck. At 9 o'clock they set out, the animal marching off through the thick forest. Chapter 12. Phileas Fogg and his companions' journey across the Indian forests. To shorten the journey, the guide passed to the left of the railway. The driver knew the roads and said they would gain 20 miles by going directly through the forest. Mr. Fogg and Sir Francis were very uncomfortable in their seats, but they accepted it in a true British way. They talked very little. As for Passepartout, who was on the beast's back, he was thrown back and forth in every step. He was very careful to follow his master's advice not to talk. He did not want to bite his tongue. The good man bounced up and down, but he laughed all the time. From time to time he gave Cayuni a piece of sugar. After 2 hours, the guide stopped the elephant and gave him an hour for rest. Cayuni drank from a nearby spring and began eating branches and plants all around him. Sir Francis and Mr. Fogg did not regret the delay. "Why, he's made of iron," said the general. "Of steel," replied Passepartout as he made breakfast. At noon they started again. This area was rarely seen by travelers, and the English did not control much of it. Several times the travelers saw angry Indians in the distance. Few animals were seen. Even the monkeys hurried away from them with strange looks that made Passepartout laugh. The servant was troubled, though. What would Mr. Fogg do with the elephant when he got to Allahabad? He could not take him. It would be too expensive. Would he sell him or set him free? They stopped at 8 in the evening at a ruined house. They had crossed 25 miles that day, and they had 25 miles left. The night was cold. The driver lit a fire, and the travelers ate dinner. The guide watched Cayuni, who slept standing against a tree. Nothing bothered them at night. Sir Francis slept like a tired soldier. Passepartout had dreams of bouncing. As for Mr. Fogg, he slept as peacefully as if he was home in Savile Road. They started again at 6 in the morning. The guide hoped to reach Allahabad by evening. At 2 o'clock, the guide entered a thick forest. The journey was almost over, when the elephant suddenly stopped. It was then 4 o'clock. "What's the matter?" asked Sir Francis. "I don't know, officer," replied the driver, listening to voices in the distance. The voices became clearer. The driver jumped down, tied the elephant to a tree, and ran into the forest. He soon returned, saying, "A group of priests is coming. We can't let them see us." The voices came closer, and the travelers heard instruments and a song. First came the priests, dressed in long robes. Men, women, and children followed, singing a strange song. A carriage drawn by oxen was next. On the carriage was a horrible statue with 4 arms and a red body. Sir Francis recognized the statue. The goddess Kali, the goddess of love and death. A group of monks were dancing around the statue. They were covered in cuts and blood, and they led a woman who walked uneasily. The woman was young, and her head, neck, shoulders, ears, arms, hands, and toes were covered in jewels. The guards following the young woman were very different. They had swords and guns at their waists, and they carried a dead body on a litter. The body was an old man, wearing silk and gold. Finally came the musicians. Sir Francis sadly watched the group, and, turning to the driver, said, "A suttee." The driver nodded and put his finger to his lips. The strange group walked away, and finally the travelers could not hear the songs. Phileas Fogg asked, "What is a suttee?" "A suttee," replied the general, "is a human sacrifice, but a voluntary one. The woman you saw will be burned tomorrow at dawn." "Horrible!" cried Passepartout. "And the body?" asked Mr. Fogg. "Is that of the prince, her husband," said the guide. "Is it possible," continued Phileas Fogg, "that these practices still exist in India, and that the English have been unable to stop them?" "These sacrifices do not occur in most of India," replied Sir Francis, "but we have no power in this area." "The poor woman!" cried Passepartout. "To be burned alive." "Yes," replied Sir Francis, "burned alive. And if she were not, she would be treated horribly by her relatives. They would shave her hair, feed her only a little rice, and treat her like a dog. Sometimes the sacrifice is truly voluntary, and the government cannot stop it." The guide shook his head and said, "Tomorrow's sacrifice is not voluntary." "How do you know?" "Everyone here knows about this." "But the woman was not fighting," said Sir Francis. "That's because they gave her lots of opium." "Where are they taking her?" "To the temple of Pelagi, 2 miles from here. The sacrifice will be tomorrow at dawn." The guide brought out the elephant and prepared to start again. Mr. Fogg stopped him, and turning to Sir Francis Cromarty, said, "Suppose we save this woman." "Save the woman, Mr. Fogg?" "I have 12 hours to spare. I can devote them to that." "Why, you are a man of heart." "Sometimes," replied Phileas Fogg quietly, "when I have the time." Chapter 13. Passepartout learns that fortune is good to the brave. The project was a difficult one. Mr. Fogg was risking life, and therefore the success of his tour. But he did not stop, and Sir Francis Cromarty was a good ally. Passepartout was ready for anything. His master's idea charmed him. He saw a heart in his master's icy outside. He began to love Phileas Fogg. There was still the guide. Would he help the Indians? If he would not help, they needed him to not help the enemy. Sir Francis asked him directly. "Officers," replied the guide, "I am a Parsee, not a Hindu, and this woman is a Parsee. Command me as you will." "Excellent," said Mr. Fogg. "It is certain, however," said the guide, "if we are taken, we will be tortured or killed." "That is foreseen," replied Mr. Fogg. "I think we must wait till night before acting." "I think so," said the guide. The Indian then told the story of the woman. She was beautiful and the daughter of a wealthy Bombay merchant. She had received an English education in that city, and her manners were very European. Her name was Aouda. After her parents died, she was married against her will to the old prince. Now the prince's relatives wanted her dead. They took the elephant to the temple of Pelagi. They stopped 500 feet away. They then discussed how to get to the woman. Could they enter any of its doors after the Indians fell into a drunken sleep? Or was it safer to make a hole in the wall? They could not make this decision until they reached the temple, but they decided that they must act that night. In the morning, no one could save her. As soon as night fell, about 6 o'clock, they decided to look closely at the temple. The Indians were getting drunk on liquid opium, and it might be possible to get past them to the temple. The Parsee led the others to a small stream where they found the body of the prince. "Come," whispered the guide. They passed the Indians, but at the entrance to the temple the guards were awake. "It is only 8 now," said the general, "and these guards may also go to sleep." They lay down at the foot of a tree and waited. They waited till midnight, but the guards did not move. They decided to try to open the walls on the other side. They walked around to the back of the temple. The night was dark, and the trees made it even darker. The temple walls were made of brick, so their pocket knives would be enough. The Parsi and Passepartout began to loosen the bricks. They were working quickly when they heard a cry inside the temple. Had they been heard? They ran away and hid in the woods. The guards came around and stood at the back of the temple. How could they save her? Sir Francis shook his fists. "We have nothing to do but to go away," he whispered. "Nothing but to go away," said the guide. "Stop," said Fogg. "I am only due at Allahabad tomorrow before noon." "But what can you hope to do?" asked Sir Francis. "In a few hours it will be daylight, and—" "The chance which now seems lost may be seen at the last moment." What was this cool Englishman thinking? Was he planning to rush for the young woman at the last moment? That would be foolish, and Fogg was not a fool. Sir Francis decided to wait until the end, though. Passepartout had an idea. It seemed foolish, but then he thought, why not, after all? It's a chance, and maybe the only one. The hours passed, and day approached. This was the moment. The people awoke, and the songs began. The hour of sacrifice had come. The doors of the temple opened, and Sir Francis and Mr. Fogg saw the woman. She was trying to escape, but she could not. Sir Francis grabbed Mr. Fogg's hand. He was holding a knife. The woman was put with the prince's body. A torch was brought, and the wood immediately caught fire. Sir Francis and the guide caught Phileas Fogg, who was about to rush upon the body. He pushed them aside, but the scene changed. The crowd fell to the ground with fear. The old prince was not dead. He rose, took his wife in his arms, and climbed down in the smoke. The monks, soldiers, and priests were full of fear, and they would not look. Mr. Fogg and Sir Francis stared, and the Parsi bowed his head. The prince came to Sir Francis and Mr. Fogg and said, "Let us be off." It was Passepartout himself who had saved the young woman. A moment after, they escaped into the woods on the elephant. The trick had been discovered, though, and the priests and soldiers chased into the woods. They fired at them, but soon the travelers were too far away. Chapter 14. Phileas Fogg travels the length of the Ganges River and does not think to look at it. The job was done. Passepartout laughed for an hour at his success. Sir Francis shook his hand, and his master said, "Well done." Passepartout said that it was Mr. Fogg's success. He only had a strange idea. Passepartout laughed again, thinking that for a few moments he had been a prince and husband to a beautiful woman. The woman was still asleep. The elephant was moving quickly through the forest. They stopped at 7 o'clock. The driver made the woman drink some water, but she was still mostly asleep. Sir Francis knew about the drugs she had been given, and was not worried. He was worried, though, that if Aouda remained in India, she would be captured again. She would only be safe by leaving India forever. Phileas Fogg said he would think about the matter. They reached Allahabad about 10 o'clock, and they would be able to reach Calcutta in less than 24 hours. Phileas Fogg would be able to take the steamer to Hong Kong the next day, October 25th at noon. Passepartout was told to buy some supplies for the woman, so he walked around the city. He wanted to get a good look at Allahabad, also known as the City of God. He bought a dress and a few other things and returned to the station. The drugs given by the priest began to wear off, and Aouda's eyes returned to normal. She was a charming woman, and she spoke English perfectly. The train was about to start from Allahabad, and Mr. Fogg paid the guide the exact price and nothing more. Passepartout was astonished. The guide had helped his master so much, and he still had to fear the Indians. Something had to be done about Cayuni, too. Phileas Fogg had already determined the answer. "Parsi," he said, "you have done very well. I have paid for your service, but not for your devotion. Would you like to have this elephant? He is yours." The driver's eyes shined. "You are giving me a fortune," he cried. "Take him, guide," replied Mr. Fogg, "and I will still owe you." Passepartout was very happy, and he fed Cayuni one last piece of sugar. The elephant lifted Passepartout up and held him close. Soon they were on the train. During the journey, the young woman fully recovered, and Sir Francis told her the story of her rescue. He talked about Phileas Fogg's courage, and he told about Passepartout's great idea. Mr. Fogg said nothing, while Passepartout kept repeating that it wasn't worth telling. Aouda thanked them, but she could not speak. Her eyes said very much while she cried. Then she thought about her current dangers, and she became afraid. Phileas Fogg understood her fear and offered to take her to Hong Kong. There she could wait out the problem. She accepted, since she had a relative in Hong Kong. Although it is on a Chinese island, Hong Kong was wholly English. At 12:30, the train stopped at Benares. Benares was Sir Francis Cromarty's goal. He said goodbye to Phileas Fogg. He expressed hope that Mr. Fogg would come to India another time as a regular traveler. Phileas Fogg lightly shook his hand. Aouda showed Sir Francis great warmth, and Passepartout shook his hand. The train passed along the Ganges River. Groups of Indians were praying in the sacred river. What would their gods think about modern-day India, with English steamboats going up and down the Ganges? Night came, and the train passed at full speed. They could hear tigers, bears, and wolves flee before the train. They reached Calcutta at 7 a.m, and the ship left for Hong Kong at noon. Phileas Fogg had 5 hours before him. In his journal, he was due at Calcutta on the 25th of October, and that was the exact date of his actual arrival. He was neither running behind nor ahead of time. The 2 days gained between London and Bombay had been lost in the journey across India, but Phileas Fogg did not regret them. Chapter 15. The bag of money gets smaller. The train entered the station, and the three exited the train. Just as they were leaving the station, a policeman came up to them and said, "Mr. Phileas Fogg?" "I am he." "Is this man your servant?" added the policeman. "Yes." "Be so good, both of you, as to follow me." Mr. Fogg did not look surprised. This man was a policeman, and law is sacred to an Englishman. Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Passepartout were taken to a carriage. In 20 minutes they were in the English side of town, and they stopped at a house. The policeman took them to a room with locked windows, and said, "You will see Judge Obadiah at 8:30. He then left and closed the door. "Why, we are prisoners," said Passepartout, falling into a chair. Aouda said to Mr. Fogg,
"Sir, you must leave me. It is because you saved me that you are here."
Mr. Fogg said it was impossible. It was unlikely he would be arrested for preventing a suttee. There was some mistake. "But the steamer leaves at noon," said Passepartout nervously. "We shall be on board by noon," replied his master. At 8:30 the policeman took them to a courtroom. A crowd of Europeans and Indians were in the back of the room. Mr. Fogg and his companions sat on a bench. Judge Obadiah, a fat, round man, entered soon after. The clerk, Mr. Oysterpuff, followed him. "The first case," said the judge. "Phileas Fogg," demanded Oysterpuff. "I am here," replied Mr. Fogg. "Passepartout." "Here," said Passepartout. "Good. Bring in the 3 that made the charge." A door opened, and 3 Indian priests entered. "These are the men who are going to burn our young lady," Passepartout quietly said. The clerk read the charge of disturbing a religious place. "You hear the charge?" asked the judge. "Yes, sir," replied Mr. Fogg, "and I admit it." "You admit it?" "I admit it, and I wish to hear these priests admit what they were going to do at the temple of Pelagi." The priests looked at each other. They did not seem to understand. "Yes," cried Passepartout, "at the temple of Pelagi, when they were about to burn a woman." The judge was astonished. "What woman?" said Judge Obadiah. "Burn whom? In Bombay itself?" "Bombay!" cried Passepartout. "Certainly. We are not talking about the temple of Pelagi, but of the temple of Malabar Hill in Bombay." "And as proof," added the clerk, "here are the criminal's shoes." "My shoes!" cried Passepartout, surprised. The master and servant were confused. After their adventure, they had forgotten about trouble in Bombay. Fix, the detective, thought he could use Passepartout's trouble against Mr. Fogg. He delayed leaving Bombay by 12 hours and talked to the priests of Malabar Hill. He promised the 3 men money in damages and sent them to Calcutta on the next train. They arrived before Mr. Fogg because the Englishman had stopped to help Aouda. Had Passepartout not been so busy, he would have noticed the detective in the corner of the courtroom. He was watching closely because the warrant had not reached Calcutta as it had done at Bombay and Suez. "The facts are admitted?" asked the judge. "Admitted," replied Mr. Fogg coldly. "As English law protects the religions of the Indian people, and as the man Passepartout has admitted that he disturbed the temple of Malabar Hill, I sentence Passepartout to 15 days in prison and a fine of 300 pounds. And as the master must be held responsible for his servant, I sentence Phileas Fogg to 1 week in prison and a fine of £150. Fix was very happy. If Phileas Fogg was in Calcutta for a week, the warrant would arrive in time. Passepartout was astonished. This sentence ruined his master. A wager of £20,000 was lost because he had gone to that temple. Phileas Fogg calmly said, "I offer bail." Fix was worried, but then the judge said bail was £2,000 per person. "I will pay it now," said Mr. Fogg. "This money will be returned to you when you are released from prison," said the judge. "Meanwhile, you are free on bail." Mr. Fogg took out his arm, and they left. Passepartout sadly followed them. Fix still hoped the robber would not leave £2,000 behind him. He followed the three, and saw them board the steamer at 11 o'clock. "The robber is off after all," he said. £2,000 sacrificed. I'll follow him to the end of the world if necessary, but at this rate he'll use all the stolen money. Fix was not far off. Since leaving London, Mr. Fogg had already spent more than £5,000. Chapter 16. Fix does not seem to understand what is said to him. The Rangoon was an iron steamer, weighing about 1,770 tons. She was as fast as the Mongolia, but not as comfortable. Phileas Fogg wanted to make the trip nicer for Aouda, but the trip would only take 10 to 12 days, and the young woman was not hard to please. During the first few days of the journey, Aouda got to know her protector. She constantly thanked Mr. Fogg. The gentleman listened to her, but he never seemed warm. Aouda did not know what to think of him. Passepartout had told her about him, and he told her about the wager. Many of the Parsee merchants had made fortunes by trading cotton. One of them, Sir Jametse Jejeeboy, was made a knight by the English government. Aouda was a relative of this man. It was his cousin, Gigi, whom she hoped to join at Hong Kong. She did not know if he would protect her, though. Mr. Fogg tried to calm her. What was Detective Fix doing all this while? He had managed to board the Rangoon at Calcutta without being seen by Passepartout. He left orders that, if the warrant should arrive, it should be sent to him at Hong Kong. It would be hard to explain to Passepartout why he was on board. It became necessary, though, for Fix to talk to the servant again. All the detective's hopes were on Hong Kong. The steamer's stay at Singapore would be too short. The arrest must be made at Hong Kong, or the robber would escape forever. Hong Kong was the last English ground Mr. Fogg would visit. Fix decided that, if worst came to worst, he would tell Passepartout everything. He was certain Passepartout was not Fogg's partner. The servant would not want to become a criminal and would help the detective. This method was dangerous and could only be used when everything else failed. One word from Passepartout to his master would ruin everything. But who was this woman Aouda? They had met in between Bombay and Calcutta, but where? Had they met accidentally, or had he searched for the beautiful woman? He decided he could create problems for Mr. Fogg at Hong Kong, and the gentleman could not escape by using money. Could he wait till they reached Hong Kong? Fogg had a habit of jumping from one boat to another. He might be on his way to Yokohama before Fix could do anything. There was no time to lose, so Fix prepared to talk to Passepartout. It was now the 30th of October, and on the next day the Rangoon would be in Singapore. Fix went on deck, where Passepartout was walking. The detective looked surprised and walked forward. "You here on the Rangoon?" "What, Monsieur Fix, are you on board?" replied the really astonished Passepartout. "Why, I left you at Bombay, and here you are, on the way to Hong Kong. Are you going around the world too?" No, replied Fix. "I shall stop at Hong Kong, at least for some days." Said Passepartout, who seemed confused. "But how is it I have not seen you on board since we left Calcutta?" "Oh, I had a little seasickness. I've been staying in my room." "And how is Mr. Fogg?" "As well as ever, not a day behind time." "But, Monsieur Fix, you don't know that we have a young lady with us." "A young lady?" replied the detective. Passepartout told Fix Auda's history, the trouble at the Bombay temple, the purchase of the elephant, the rescue, the arrest, and the sentence of the Calcutta court. Passepartout was happy to tell the story. "But will your master bring this young woman to Europe?" "Not at all. We are placing her under the protection of one of her relatives, a rich merchant at Hong Kong." "Nothing to be done there," said Fix to himself. He hid his disappointment. "A glass of gin, Mr. Passepartout?" "Yes, Monsieur Fix. We must have a friendly glass on board the Rangoon." Chapter 17. Showing what happened on the voyage from Singapore to Hong Kong. The detective met Passepartout often on the deck. Fix did not try to get more information about Mr. Fogg. He did see Mr. Fogg once or twice, but the gentleman usually stayed in his room. Passepartout began to seriously wonder how Fix could be on the same path as his master. He had first met this friendly man at Suez, then on board the Mongolia. He had stopped at Bombay, and now he was on the Rangoon. What was Fix's purpose? Passepartout was ready to wager his Indian shoes that Fix would also leave Hong Kong at the same time, and probably on the same steamer. Passepartout could never have guessed the detective's real purpose. He would never have guessed that Fogg was being followed as a robber. Passepartout decided that Fix could only be an agent of Mr. Fogg's friends at the Reform Club. He had been sent to follow Mr. Fogg to make sure he really went around the world. "It's clear," the worthy servant repeated. "He's a spy sent to follow us. Spying on Mr. Fogg, who is so honorable a man. Ah, gentlemen of the Reform, this shall cost you dear." Passepartout, happy with this discovery, decided not to tell his master. He didn't want Mr. Fogg to be upset with his friends. But Passepartout decided to try to confuse Fix. During the afternoon of Wednesday, 30th October, the Rangoon entered the Strait of Malacca. The Rangoon stopped at Singapore the next day at 4 a.m. to receive coal. They had gained half a day, and Phileas Fogg noted this in his journal. Auda wanted to walk on shore, so Phileas Fogg went with her. Fix followed them carefully. After a drive of 2 hours through the country, Auda and Mr. Fogg returned to the town. At 10 o'clock they boarded the steamer, followed closely by the detective. At 11 o'clock, the Rangoon left Singapore harbor. Singapore is 1,300 miles away from the island of Hong Kong. Phileas Fogg hoped to accomplish the journey in 6 days, so he could take the steamer to Yokohama, Japan on the 6th of November. The Rangoon had many passengers, including a number of Indians, Sri Lankans, Chinese, Malays, and Portuguese. The weather had been fine, but now it had changed. The waves were very strong, and the boat rolled heavily. The poor design of the Rangoon meant the steamer had to slow down. Passepartout was very angry, but his master did not seem to worry. Perhaps Passepartout was thinking about the gas burning in Savile Row. "You are in a great hurry, then," said Fix to him one day, "to reach Hong Kong." "A very great hurry." "Mr. Fogg, I suppose, is anxious to catch the steamer for Yokohama." "Terribly anxious." "You believe in this journey around the world, then?" "Absolutely. Don't you, Mr. Fix?" I don't believe a word of it." "You're a clever dog," said Passepartout, winking at him. This disturbed Fix. Had the Frenchman guessed his real purpose? He didn't know what to think. But how could Passepartout have discovered that he was a detective? Passepartout went even further the next day. "Mr. Fix," said he, "shall we be so unfortunate as to lose you when we get to Hong Kong?" "Why?" replied Fix. "I don't know, perhaps, if you would only go on with us. You were going to Bombay, and here you are in China. America is not far off, and from America to Europe is only a step." Passepartout continued to confuse Fix. Next, he asked Fix if he made much money in his current job. "Yes and no," replied Fix. "There is good and bad luck in such things. But you must understand that I don't travel at my own expense." "Oh, I am quite sure of that," cried Passepartout, laughing. Fix did not know what to think. He decided that if Fogg prepared to leave Hong Kong, he would tell Passepartout everything. Either the servant was a partner of his master, or the servant knew nothing of the robbery and would leave the robber. Phileas Fogg was not disturbed by anything, however, including Aouda. Passepartout saw in Aouda's eyes that she felt strongly about his master. Chapter 18. Phileas Fogg, Passepartout, and Fix go each about his business. The weather was bad during the later days of the journey. The wind was very strong, and the steamer moved very slowly. The captain said they would reach Hong Kong 20 hours behind time, and more if the storm lasted. Phileas Fogg looked at the sea in his usual calm way. He never looked upset, though a delay of 20 hours would make him too late for the Yokohama boat, and would make him lose his wager. Aouda was amazed to see him remain so calm. Fix saw things differently. The storm greatly pleased him. Each delay filled him with hope. He thought Fogg would have to stay at Hong Kong for some days. It did not matter that the storm made him seasick. His body was sick, but his spirit was happy. Passepartout was very angry at the weather. Everything had been going so well. Earth and sea seemed to work for his master. Steamers and railways obeyed him. Fix hid his happiness. If he had shown it, Passepartout would have hurt him. On the 4th, however, the sea became more calm. The wind became favorable again. Passepartout was happy, but the time lost could not be recovered. They did not see land until 5 o'clock in the morning on the 6th. Phileas Fogg was 24 hours behind, and the Yokohama steamer would be missed. Passepartout wanted to ask the pilot if the steamer had left for Yokohama, but he did not dare. He wanted to keep the little hope he had. Mr. Fogg was not shy, and he asked the pilot directly. "A steamer will leave tomorrow morning," answered the pilot. "Ah," said Mr. Fogg, without seeming astonished. "What is the steamer's name?" "The Carnatic." "Shouldn't she have gone yesterday?" "Yes, sir, but they had to repair one of her engines. Her departure was postponed until tomorrow." "Thank you," replied Mr. Fogg. Passepartout shook the pilot's hand. "Pilot, you are the best of all good fellows." The Carnatic was leaving Hong Kong at 5 the next morning. Mr. Fogg had 16 hours to take Aouda to her wealthy relative. When they landed, Phileas Fogg took Aouda to a hotel. He instructed Passepartout to wait with her so that she was not left alone. Mr. Fogg went to look for her cousin, Gigi. He thought many people would know such a wealthy merchant, and he soon learned that Gigi had left China 2 years before. He had taken his fortune and retired. One businessman thought he had moved to Holland. Phileas Fogg returned and told Aouda. At first, Aouda said nothing. She thought for a few moments. Then in her sweet, soft voice, she said,
"What ought I to do, Mr. Fogg?"
she asked. "It is very simple," replied the gentleman. "Go on to Europe."
"But I cannot trouble you."
"You do not trouble me. Passepartout." "Monsieur?" "Go to the Carnatic and request 3 rooms." Passepartout was delighted that the young woman would come with them, and he went quickly to obey his master. Chapter 19. Passepartout takes a too great interest in his master. Hong Kong is an island. It has been possessed by the English since 1842, and the English have made it into an important city. Passepartout wandered towards the Victoria port. The city seemed very much like Bombay, Calcutta, and Singapore. At the port he found ships from all nations, English, French, American, Dutch, Chinese, and Japanese. On reaching the docks, he was not surprised to see Fix walking up and down. The detective seemed very disturbed and disappointed, and he had good reason. The warrant had not yet come, and Phileas Fogg would soon leave British land. "This is bad," said Passepartout quietly, "for the gentlemen of the Reform Club." He gave Fix a big smile and said, "Well, Monsieur Fix, have you decided to go with us to America?" "Yes," replied Fix. "Good," said Passepartout, laughing. "I knew you would not leave us. Let's get our rooms." They entered the office and paid for their rooms. The clerk told them that the repairs had been finished, and the Carnatic would be leaving that evening. "That will suit my master all the better," said Passepartout. "I will go and let him know." Fix decided to tell Passepartout everything. It seemed to be the only way to keep his master in Hong Kong. He invited Passepartout into a bar. When they entered, they saw a large bed at the end of the room. At the small tables, many people were drinking English beer, gin, and brandy. While they drank, they smoked opium from long pipes. From time to time, one of the smokers, affected by the drug, would slip under the table. Then the waiters would carry him to the bed. The bed already had 20 of these people. Fix and Passepartout saw that they were in a smoking house filled with the customers of the English opium merchants. The Chinese government has tried to stop this evil with strong laws, but has failed. They ordered 2 bottles of wine. They chatted about the journey. When the bottles were empty, Passepartout rose to go and tell his master about the change in the time. Fix caught him by the arm and said, "I want to have a serious talk with you." "We'll talk about it tomorrow." "I haven't time now," Passepartout said. "Stay. It's about your master." Passepartout looked at his companion and sat down. Fix lowered his voice and said, "You have guessed who I am?" "Of course," said Passepartout, smiling. "Then I'm going to tell you everything." "Now that I know everything, those gentlemen have put themselves to useless expense." "Useless?" said Fix. "It's clear you don't know how large the sum is." "Of course I do. 20,000 pounds. 55,000, answered Fix. "What?" cried the Frenchman. "There's all the more reason to not delay. If I succeed, I get 2,000 pounds. If you'll help me, I'll let you have 500 of them." "Help you?" cried Passepartout. "Yes, help me keep Mr. Fogg here for 2 or 3 days." "What are you saying? Those gentlemen followed my master, and now they want to stop him?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, this is a shameful trick. And gentlemen, too. Bah!" Fix began to be puzzled. "Members of the Reform Club," continued Passepartout, "you must know, Monsieur Fix, that my master is an honest man." "But who do you think I am?" asked Fix. "An agent of the members of the Reform Club." The detective thought for a moment. "Well," said the detective to himself, "as he is not a partner, he will help me." "Listen to me," said Fix abruptly. "I am not an agent of the members of the Reform Club. I am a police detective sent out here by the London office. I will prove it. Here are my papers. Mr. Fogg's wager is only for show. On the 28th of last September, 55,000 pounds were stolen from the Bank of England. The description of the robber matches Mr. Phileas Fogg exactly. My master is the most honourable of men." "How do you know?" "You know nothing about him. He left London with a foolish reason, without trunks, and with a large amount of money. Would you like to be arrested as his partner?" Passepartout did not look at the detective. Phileas Fogg, who rescued Aouda, a robber? He did not want to believe that his master was guilty. "Well, what do you want of me?" said Passepartout. "I have tracked Mr. Fogg here, but I have failed to receive the warrant. You must help me keep him here in Hong Kong." "Never," replied Passepartout. "Mr. Fix, even if my master is really the robber you are seeking, which I deny, I have been in his service. I have seen his goodness, and I will never betray him, not for all the gold in the world." "You refuse?" "I refuse." Then think I have said nothing, said Fix, and let us drink. Yes, let us drink. Passepartout began to feel the alcohol. Fix gave him more, and he put an opium pipe in Passepartout's hand. He took it and drew several puffs. His head became heavy, and it fell onto the table. At last, said Fix, Mr. Fogg will not know about the caryatid's time. If he finds out, he will have to go without this horrible Frenchman. Chapter 20. Fix comes face to face with Phileas Fogg. Mr. Fogg did not know that he was in danger of missing the steamer. He was taking Aouda around the streets of the English quarter. After making some purchases, they returned to the hotel. After dinner, Mr. Fogg read the Times and the Illustrated London News. If anything could surprise him, it would be not to see his servant at bedtime. Passepartout did not return in the morning either. Mr. Fogg took his bag, called Aouda, and left for the docks. It was then 8 o'clock. At 9:30, the Carnatic would leave the harbor. When they reached the deck, Mr. Fogg learned that the Carnatic had sailed the evening before. He had expected to find the steamer and his servant. He did not show any disappointment, though. At this moment, Fix appeared. "Were you a passenger on the Rangoon, sir, like me?" "I was, sir," replied Mr. Fogg coldly. "Pardon me. I thought I might find your servant here."
Do you know where he is, sir?
asked Aouda anxiously. "What?" replied Fix, showing surprise. "Is he not with you? Did you intend to sail on the Carnatic?"
Yes, sir.
"So did I, madam, and I am disappointed. The Carnatic left Hong Kong 12 hours early, without any notice. Now we just wait a week for another steamer." Fix was alarmed when he heard Mr. Fogg say, "But there are other ships besides the Carnatic." Aouda took his arm and walked to the docks. Fix followed them. For 3 hours Phileas Fogg wandered about the docks, but he had no luck. Fix began to hope again. Then a sailor walked up to Mr. Fogg. "Are you looking for a boat, sir?" "Have you a boat ready to sail?" "Yes, sir. A pilot boat. The best in the harbour. Will you look at her?" "Yes." "You will be happy with her. Is it for a pleasure trip?" "No, for a voyage. Will you take me to Yokohama?" "Are you joking, sir?" "No. I have missed the Carnatic, and I must get to Yokohama by the 14th at the latest." "I am sorry," said the sailor, "but it is impossible. I can't risk my boat on such a long journey." Fix breathed easily. "But," added the pilot, "it might be done another way." Fix stopped breathing. "How?" asked Mr. Fogg. "By going to Shanghai. It is only 800 miles from here. We would not have to sail wide of the Chinese coast." "Pilot," said Mr. Fogg, "I must take the American steamer at Yokohama and not at Shanghai." "Why not? The San Francisco steamer does not start from Yokohama. It puts in at Yokohama, but it starts from Shanghai." "You are sure of that? When does the boat leave Shanghai?" "On the 11th at 7 in the morning. We have 4 days before us. If we had good luck and a southwest wind, we could make those 800 miles to Shanghai. And you could go—" In an hour? It is a bargain. Are you the master of the boat? Yes, John Bunsby, master of the Tankadere. Phileas Fogg turned to Fix and said, If you would like to join us. Thanks, sir. Very well. In half an hour we will go on board.
But poor Passepartout,
said Aouda, who was worried about the servant. I shall try to find him, replied Phileas Fogg. Fix nervously went to the boat. Phileas Fogg asked about Passepartout at the police station and the French consulate. At 3 o'clock they returned to the boat. The Tankadere was a neat little boat weighing 20 tons. It was built like a racing boat. The crew of the Tankadere was made up of John Bunsby, the master, and 4 strong sailors that knew the Chinese seas. Phileas Fogg and Aouda went on board, where they found Fix. The room was small but neat. I am sorry to have nothing better to offer you, said Mr. Fogg to Fix. The detective was embarrassed. It's certain, he thought, though he is a rascal, he's a polite one. At 3:10 the boat raised the English flag and left the dock. Mr. Fogg and Aouda were on deck, but they did not see Passepartout. Chapter 21. The master of the Tankadere runs great risk of losing a reward of £200. The voyage of 800 miles was dangerous for such a small boat. Since he was being paid by the day, the master could have made a lot of money by taking his passengers to Yokohama. But John Bunsby was not that foolish. Please use all possible speed, said Phileas Fogg when they got into the open sea. Trust me, sir. We are going as fast as we can. It is your occupation, not mine, and I trust you. Phileas Fogg stood straight up with his legs apart, like a sailor. He stared at the water. The young woman was a little nervous to be on such a small boat. Night came. The pilot put out his lights. Many boats were heading towards land, and an accident could destroy the small ship. Fix did not talk to the other passengers. He was thinking of the future. It seemed certain that Fogg would not stop at Yokohama, but would take the boat for San Francisco. America was so big that Fogg would be safe. Instead of sailing directly from England to the United States like a common thief, he had traveled most of the planet. Once in the United States, what should Fix do? Should he stop following him? No. It was his duty. There was one thing to be thankful for. Passepartout was not with his master. Phileas was also thinking of Passepartout, who had so strangely disappeared. It seemed possible that the man might have boarded the Carnatic by mistake. This was also Aouda's opinion. She missed Passepartout very much. They might find him at Yokohama. A strong wind started at 10 o'clock. It would have been safer to head for land, but the pilot studied the skies and went ahead. Everything was prepared for high speed. Mr. Fogg and Aouda went to the room at midnight. The pilot and the crew remained on deck all night. At sunrise the next day, which was 8th November, the boat had made more than 100 miles. The Tankadere was still at her highest speed. If the wind held, the chances would be good. During the day they kept close to the coast. Mr. Fogg and Aouda were not affected by the rough sea, and they ate well. Mr. Fix was invited to join them, and he did sadly. He did not like to eat this man's food, but he had to eat. When the meal was over, he said to Mr. Fogg, "Sir, you have been very kind to me. I must ask to pay my share." "Let us not speak of that, sir," replied Mr. Fogg. "But if I insist—" "No, sir," repeated Mr. Fogg. Fix did not talk for the rest of the day. Meanwhile they were travelling quickly, and John Bunsby was in high hope. The crew worked hard, expecting a good reward. They worked as hard as they would in an important race. By evening they had travelled 220 miles, and Mr. Fogg thought they might reach Yokohama without a single delay in his journal. At daybreak the wind blew hard again, and it looked like a storm was coming. John Bunsby studied the sky for a long time. At last he said to Mr. Fogg, "Shall I speak out, sir?" "Of course." "Well, we are going to have a storm." "Is the wind north or south?" asked Mr. Fogg quietly. "South. Look, a typhoon is coming up." "Glad it's a typhoon from the south, for it will carry us forward." "If you take it that way," said John Bunsby, "I've nothing more to say." The pilot prepared for the worst. He took away all but a single heavy sail. John Bunsby asked his passengers to go below, but they did not want to be downstairs in such a storm. Neither Mr. Fogg, Fix, nor Aouda left the deck. The storm of rain and wind came on at 8 o'clock. The single sail took them faster than a train going full speed. The boat moved northward the whole day. Huge waves almost knocked them over, but the pilot saved them. As for Phileas Fogg, it seemed just as if the typhoon were part of his program. So far the wind had pointed them north, but towards the evening the wind came from the northwest. The waves hit the boat, and the boat rolled terribly. John Bunsby talked to his crew, and then he said to Mr. Fogg, "I think, sir, that we should go to one of the ports on the coast." "I think so, too." "Ah," said the pilot, "but which one?" "I know of but one," replied Mr. Fogg. "And that is?" "Shanghai." The pilot did not understand at first. He could barely recognize such determination. Then he cried, "Well, yes, you're right, to Shanghai." So the Tankadere stayed on her northward track. The night was terrible. Aouda was very tired, but she did not say anything. More than once Mr. Fogg rushed to protect her from the waves. Day came. The storm was still terrible, but the wind returned to the southeast. It was a good change, and the Tankadere rushed forward again. At noon the sea began to calm down, and the passengers could now eat a little. The night was mostly quiet. The boat moved very quickly. The next morning at dawn they saw the coast, and John Bunsby said they were 100 miles from Shanghai. 100 miles, and only one day left. That evening Mr. Fogg was due at Shanghai. The wind grew calmer. At noon the Tankadere was within 45 miles of Shanghai. There were still 6 hours left. The wind grew calmer, but John Bunsby used every part of the wind. At 6 o'clock they were not more than 10 miles from the mouth of the Shanghai River. At 7 they were still 3 miles from Shanghai. At this moment a cloud of smoke appeared. It was the American steamer leaving for Yokohama. "Signal her," said Phileas Fogg quietly. A small cannon on the front of the deck was loaded. They raised the flag halfway, which meant they needed help. "Fire!" said Mr. Fogg. Chapter 22. Passepartout finds out that it's good to have money in one's pocket. The Carnatic left Hong Kong at 6:30 on the 7th of November. She carried many passengers. 2 rooms were empty, though, Phileas Fogg's rooms. The next day a passenger with a strange walk and messy hair came out of the second room. It was Passepartout. Shortly after Fix left the opium bar, 2 waiters took Passepartout to the bed. 3 hours later he awoke and fought against the drug. He could barely walk and often fell, and he kept crying out, "The Carnatic! The Carnatic!" He made it to the Carnatic and fell asleep on the deck. Several sailors, who had seen this before, carried the poor Frenchman down into the second room. Passepartout did not wake until they were 150 miles away from China. The next morning he found himself on deck of the Carnatic, and the pure air helped him. At last he remembered the events of the night before. He remembered Fix's conversation and the opium house. "I have been drunk. What will Mr. Fogg say?" he said to himself. "At least I have not missed the steamer." Then he thought about Fix. "As for him, I hope we are rid of him. A detective following Mr. Fogg. Mr. Fogg is no more a robber than I am a murderer." Should he tell his master Fix's real work? Maybe it would be better to wait until Mr. Fogg reached London again. Then they could have a good laugh over it. It was something to think about. The first thing to do was to find Mr. Fogg and apologize. Passepartout got up and walked around the deck. He did not see either Aouda or Mr. Fogg. He walked down to the bar. Mr. Fogg was not there either. He asked a crew member, but the sailor had never heard of Fogg. "He is a tall gentleman, quiet, and does not talk very much," Passepartout said. "He has with him a young lady." "There is no young lady on board," the sailor said. "Am I on the Carnatic?" "Yes." "On the way to Yokohama?" "Certainly." Passepartout understood now. He was supposed to have told Mr. Fogg that the time of sailing had been changed, but he had not done it. It was his fault that Mr. Fogg and Aouda had missed the steamer. Yes, but it was more the fault of the betrayer. If he saw Fix again, what trouble there would be. Passepartout became calmer, and he studied his situation. He was on the way to Japan, and he had no money. What would he do when he got there? At dawn on the 13th, the Carnatic entered the port of Yokohama. He nervously went on shore. He had nothing better to do, so he wandered the streets of Yokohama. He first found himself in a European quarter. Here, as in Hong Kong and Calcutta, were groups of all people: Americans, English, Chinese, and Dutch. He went on to the Japanese quarter, which is called Benten. He saw beautiful trees and old temples. The streets were crowded with people. Priests passed by beating drums, and police, soldiers, and guards walked around with swords and guns. The good man had taken care to eat as large a breakfast as possible, but he had been walking all day and he was very hungry. He saw that the butchers did not have mutton, goat, nor pork. He saw that there was not very much meat in Yokohama. Night came, and Passepartout walked back to the docks. The harbor was lit by the lights of the fishermen. Chapter 23. Passepartout's nose becomes extremely long. The next morning, poor, hungry Passepartout said to himself that he must get something to eat. He might indeed sell his watch, but he would rather starve first. He must use the strong, if not beautiful, voice nature gave him. He knew several French and English songs, and he decided to try them on the Japanese. It was too early in the morning for a concert, and if he woke up his audience, they might not pay him. Passepartout decided to wait several hours. As he walked, he realized that he might be too well dressed for a traveling artist. He had the idea to sell his clothes and buy some cheaper ones. After searching for a long time, Passepartout found a dealer in old clothes. The man liked the European clothes, and he traded Passepartout an old Japanese coat and an old hat. A few small coins were now in his pocket. He first entered a tea-house and ate half a bird and a little rice. Now, he thought, I mustn't lose my head. I can't sell these clothes for one still more Japanese. I must find a way to leave this country. He decided to visit the steamers which were about to leave for America. Maybe he could get a job as a cook or servant. Once at San Francisco, he would find some way to continue. Passepartout headed towards the docks. As he approached them, he saw a large sign carried by a clown. The sign, which was in English, read, Circus Troupe, William Betulcar, owner. Their last show before leaving for the United States of the Long Noses. Long Noses. The United States, said Passepartout. That's just what I want. He followed the clown and soon found himself once more in the Japanese quarter. A quarter of an hour later, he stopped before a large tent. This was William Betulcar's business. That gentleman was the director of a group of clowns, acrobats, and gymnasts. They were giving their last performance before leaving the Empire of the Sun for the United States. Passepartout entered and asked for Mr. Betulcar, who appeared in person. What do you want? Said he to Passepartout, whom he thought was a native. Would you like a servant, sir? Asked Passepartout. A servant? Cried Mr. Betulcar. I already have two who have never left me. Here they are, he said, holding out his two strong arms. So I can be of no use to you? None. I should so like to cross the Pacific with you. Ah, said Mr. Betulcar. You are no more Japanese than I am a monkey. Why are you dressed up that way? A man dresses as he can. That's true. You are a Frenchman, aren't you? Yes, a Parisian of Paris. Well, if I can't take you as a servant, I can as a clown. You see, my friend, in France they show foreign clowns, and in foreign parts they show French clowns. Ah, you are pretty strong, eh? Especially after a good meal. And you can sing? Yes. But can you sing standing on your head, with a toy on your left foot and a sword on your right? I think so, replied Passepartout, thinking about the exercises of his younger days. Well, that's enough, said William Betulcar. Passepartout had at last found something to do. He was hired to act in the Japanese circus. It was not a very good job, but within a week he would be on his way to San Francisco. The performance was to start at 3:00, and soon the Japanese musicians started playing. Passepartout was to use his shoulders to help the human pyramid, which closed the performance. Before 3:00, the tent filled with Europeans, Chinese and Japanese, men, women, and children. After a long show of great acrobatics and gymnastics, the long noses were set to perform. They each wore a pair of great wings on their shoulders, and on their faces they wore fake noses. The noses were up to 10 feet long, and on these noses they balanced and danced. The last scene was a human pyramid. Instead of standing on each other's shoulders, the group stood on each other's noses. Passepartout filled in at the very bottom. Suddenly, the pyramid's balance failed, and the human building fell like a house built of cards. It was Passepartout's fault. He ran away from the stage and into the crowd, and fell in front of one man, crying, "Master, my master!" "You here?" "Myself." "Very well. Then let us go to the steamer, young man." Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Passepartout walked outside, where they found Mr. Batulcar. He was very angry, and Phileas Fogg had to pay him. At 6:30, Mr. Fogg and Aouda stepped on the American steamer. Passepartout followed. In his hurry, he had kept the wings and the 6-foot-long nose. Chapter 24. Mr. Fogg and party crossed the Pacific Ocean. When the pilot boat came near Shanghai, the Yokohama steamer saw the signals from the Tankadere. The steamer saw the flag and headed towards the little boat. Phileas Fogg, after paying the bill to John Busby, rewarded him with £550 more. With Aouda and Fix, he boarded the steamer, and they started for Yokohama. They reached their destination on the morning of the 14th of November. Phileas Fogg went to the Carnatic, where he learned that Passepartout had arrived the day before. The San Francisco steamer was going to leave that evening, so they needed to find Passepartout quickly. Luckily, they had gone to Mr. Batulcar's theater. Phileas Fogg would never have recognized Passepartout in his strange clothes, but the servant recognized his master and was surprised enough to knock down the pyramid. Aouda told Passepartout everything that had happened on the Tankadere, with one Mr. Fix. Passepartout did not look surprised when he heard this name. He thought he should wait to tell his master about Fix. The steamer belonged to the Pacific Mail Steamship Company and was named the General Grant. She was a large steamer of 2,500 tons. She was very fast. By making 12 miles an hour, she would cross the ocean in 21 days. Phileas Fogg was therefore justified in hoping that he would reach San Francisco by the 2nd of December, New York by the 11th, and London on the 20th, gaining several hours on the date of the 21st of December. Nothing important happened on the voyage. Mr. Fogg was as calm as ever. His young companion felt herself more and more attached to him. It was more than just thanks. His silent nature impressed her. Her emotions became very strong, but they had no effect on her protector. Where was Fix at that moment? He was actually on board the General Grant. On reaching Yokohama, the detective left Mr. Fogg and went to the English consulate. At last he found the warrant of arrest. It had followed him from Bombay on the Carnatic. The warrant was now useless, though. Mr. Fogg had left English ground. "Well," thought Fix, "my warrant is not good here, but it will be in England." The thief wants to return to his own country, thinking he has escaped the police. Good. I will follow him across the Atlantic. He went on board the General Grant, and was there when Mr. Fogg and Aouda arrived. To his surprise, he recognized Passepartout. He hid in his room, and hoped Passepartout would not see him. That very day, however, he met Passepartout face to face on the deck. The Frenchman did not say a word. He rushed Fix and grabbed him by the throat. Some nearby Americans were very amused and began to bet on him. Passepartout gave Fix a perfect round of blows, which proved that French fighters are better than English. When Passepartout finished, he felt much better. Fix got up and coldly said, "Are you done?" "For now, yes." "Then let me have a word with you." "But In your master's interests. You have beaten me." "Good. I expected it. Now, listen to me. Until now, I have been Mr. Fogg's enemy. I am now in his game." "Aha!" cried Passepartout. "You realize he is an honest man." "No," replied Fix coldly. "I think he is a thief. As long as Mr. Fogg was on English ground, it was in my interest to stop him until my warrant of arrest arrived. I did everything I could. I sent the Bombay priest after him. I got you drunk at Hong Kong, and I made him miss the Yokohama steamer." Passepartout listened with closed fists. "Now," said Fix, "Mr. Fogg seems to be going back to England. Well, I will follow him there. But from now on I will try to help him. I've changed my game, because it's in my interest to change it. Your interest is the same as mine. Only in England will you learn whether you serve a criminal or an honest man." Passepartout decided Fix spoke the truth. "Are we friends?" asked the detective. "Friends? No," replied Passepartout. "But allies, maybe. At any sign of betrayal, however, I'll twist your neck off." "Agreed," said the detective quietly. 11 days later, on the 3rd of December, the General Grant entered the Bay of the Golden Gate and reached San Francisco. Mr. Fogg had neither gained nor lost a single day. Chapter 25. A little is seen of San Francisco. At 7 in the morning, Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Passepartout set foot in America. Passepartout was so happy that they had reached America that he decided to do some acrobatics. The wood on the docks was not strong, though, and he fell through them. Mr. Fogg went to find out what time the first train left for New York. He learned that this was at 6:00 p.m. He had a whole day to spend in the city of San Francisco. He and Aouda took a carriage, and they left for the International Hotel. Passepartout looked out at the city, and he saw many low houses, buses, and churches. He saw not only Americans and Europeans, but also Chinese and Indians. Passepartout was surprised. He had heard stories about San Francisco, and he thought it would be full of thieves and robbers. Instead, he saw many gentlemen in black coats. When Passepartout reached the hotel, it did not seem that he had left England. After breakfast, Mr. Fogg and Aouda left to go to the English consulate. Passepartout asked if they should buy some guns. He had been listening to stories of attacks on trains by the Sioux and Pawnees, 2 tribes of American Indians. Mr. Fogg thought it was useless, but he told Passepartout to do what he thought best. He soon met Fix. The detective seemed very surprised. Fix said that he was happy to see Mr. Fogg. His business had asked him to return to Europe, and so he asked if he could continue the journey with Mr. Fogg. Mr. Fogg agreed, and the detective walked with him around San Francisco. They soon came to Montgomery Street, which was full of people. Men were carrying large posters, and people were crying out, "Hurrah for Cammerfield! Hurrah for Mandaboy!" It was a political meeting, Fix thought. Perhaps we should avoid this crowd. There might be danger. "Yes," said Mr. Fogg, "and fighting. Even if it's political fighting, it's still fighting." Fix smiled, and they went up some stairs to get a better look. On the other side of the street was a large platform, and the crowd was looking at it. For what purpose was this meeting? Phileas Fogg could not imagine. Was it to choose a high official? At this moment there was movement in the crowd. All the hands were raised in the air. Some sort of vote was taking place. The crowd moved again, and all the signs and flags disappeared. "It is a meeting," said Fix, "and it must be about something exciting." "Perhaps," replied Mr. Fogg simply. "At least, there are two champions here together, Mr. Cammerfield and Mr. Mandaboy." Mr. Fix asked a man near him what the cause of it all was. Before the man could reply, some new trouble started. Cries and shouts were heard. The poles of the signs and flags were used as weapons. Boots and shoes went flying through the air, and Mr. Fogg thought he heard the sound of a gun. "It would be good for us to leave," said Fix. He didn't want Mr. Fogg to be hurt before they reached London. Mr. Fogg could not say anything. A new group of people were coming through shouting, "Hurrah for Mandaboy!" Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Fix found themselves between two groups of voters, and it was too late to escape. Phileas Fogg and Fix tried to protect their companion. A big man with a red beard raised his fist to hit Mr. Fogg. It would have been a crushing blow, but Fix rushed in and took it himself. A large bruise immediately formed under his hat. "Yankee!" shouted Mr. Fogg, looking at the big man. "Englishman!" the other said. "We will meet again." "When you please." "What is your name?" "Phileas Fogg, and yours?" "Colonel Stamp Proctor." The crowd moved on. Luckily, Fix was not badly hurt. "Thanks," said Mr. Fogg as soon as they were out of the crowd. "No thanks are necessary," replied Fix. "But let us go." "Where?" "To a tailor's. Our clothes are ruined." After they bought new clothes, they returned with Aouda to the hotel. Passepartout had bought 6 new guns. When he saw Fix, he was ready to fight, but Aouda told him what happened. Fix was no longer an enemy, it seemed. After dinner, they left for the train. Mr. Fogg said to Fix, "You have not seen this Colonel Proctor again?" "No." "I will come back to America to find him," said Phileas Fogg coldly. "It would not be right for an Englishman to allow someone to treat him this badly." The train was ready to go. Mr. Fogg called a porter and said to him, "My friend, was there some trouble today in San Francisco?" "It was a political meeting, sir," replied the porter. The election of some high official?" asked Mr. Fogg. "No, sir, of a judge." Phileas Fogg got into the train, which started off at full speed. Chapter 26. Phileas Fogg and party travel by the Pacific Railroad. From ocean to ocean, so say the Americans, and their great railroad crosses the whole length of the United States. The Pacific Railroad is, however, really two lines. The Central Pacific, between San Francisco and Ogden, and the Union Pacific, between Ogden and Omaha. 5 main lines connect Omaha with New York. New York and San Francisco are connected in this way. The railroad measures 3,786 miles. Between Omaha and the Pacific, the railway crosses a territory which still has Indians and wild animals and a large area where Mormons live. In the past, the journey from New York to San Francisco took 6 months. It is now finished in 7 days. The car was long and had 8 wheels. It had 2 rows of seats and 2 platforms on either end. The passengers were able to walk from one end of the train to the other. The train had balcony cars, restaurants, bars, and smoking cars. The train left Oakland Station at 6 o'clock. It was already night. The train did not move quickly. With the stops, it did not run more than 20 miles an hour. This was quick enough to reach Omaha on time, though. There was little conversation in the car, and soon many passengers fell asleep. Passepartout was next to the detective, but he did not talk to him. After recent events, they were not friends. Fix's manner had not changed, but Passepartout was ready to kill his former friend. At 8 o'clock, a steward entered the car and announced that the time for going to bed had arrived. In a few minutes, the car was changed into a dormitory. The backs of the seats were turned into comfortable beds, and thick curtains gave everyone privacy. The country between San Francisco and Sacramento is not very hilly. The 120 miles between these 2 cities took 6 hours, and the travelers were asleep when they passed that important city. The train entered the Sierra Nevada mountains at 7 in the morning, and the dormitory was turned back into a normal car. The travelers could look at the beautiful mountain scenery. There were few bridges or tunnels. The railway turned around the mountains. The train entered the state of Nevada about 9 o'clock, going northeasterly. About midday, they reached Reno. In the prairies, sometimes great herds of buffalo crossed the train tracks, forcing the train to stop and wait. This happened, indeed, to the train in which Mr. Fogg was traveling. About 12 o'clock, a herd of 10 or 12,000 buffalo stopped the train. There were too many for the train to push past, and so they had to wait. Mr. Fogg, who had reason to be in a hurry, remained in his seat and waited patiently. Passepartout was very angry at the delay and wanted to use his new guns on the buffalo. "What a country!" cried he. "These cows stop the trains as if they were not stopping travel." The engineer did not try to fight the buffalo, and he was wise. He would have crushed the first buffaloes, no doubt, but the train would have been stopped by the others. The train would have been thrown off the track and would have then been helpless. It was best to wait patiently and move faster when the buffalo cleared. This took 3 full hours, and it was night before the track was clear. It was 8 o'clock when the train passed the Humboldt Mountains, and 9:30 when it entered Utah. In Utah lies the Great Salt Lake, the home of the Mormons. Chapter 27. Passepartout undergoes, at a speed of 20 miles an hour, a course of Mormon history. During the night of the 5th of December, the train ran southeasterly for about 50 miles, then rose an equal distance in a northeasterly direction towards the Great Salt Lake. Passepartout, about 9 o'clock, went out upon the platform to take the air. The weather was cold, but it was not snowing. He then saw a strange-looking person on the platform. This person, who had taken the train in Nevada, was tall and dark. He had a black mustache, black stockings, a black silk hat, a black coat, and black trousers. He went from one end of the train to another and put a notice on each door. Passepartout read one of the notices. It said that Elder William Hitch, Mormon missionary, would deliver a lecture on Mormonism in car number 117 from 11 to 12 o'clock. He invited all who wanted to learn about the religion to attend. "I'll go," said Passepartout to himself. He knew nothing of Mormonism except the custom of polygamy. The news spread through the train, which carried about 100 passengers. 30 came to car number 117. Passepartout took one of the front seats. At the time, Elder William Hitch rose, and, in an angry voice, told the passengers the history of the Mormon religion. The government had finally defeated these fanatics and had put their leader, Brigham Young, in prison. Elder Hitch was trying to convert people on the very railway trains. The elder's story became tiresome, and his audience grew smaller. This did not stop him, though, and he told about the Mormons being driven from Vermont, Ohio, and Missouri. Finally, only Passepartout was left. The elder looked at him and told him how Brigham Young had started Salt Lake City, and, thanks to polygamy, it had become a great city. "And this," added Elder William Hitch, "this is why the government wants to stop us. But we shall live somewhere, and you, my brother, will you not join us?" "No," replied Passepartout courageously, and left the elder alone. During the lecture, the train had reached the Great Salt Lake, also called the Dead Sea. The Salt Lake, 70 miles long and 35 wide, has a lot of salt. Fishes, of course, cannot live in it. The country around the land was very nice, since the Mormons are mostly farmers. The train reached Ogden at 2 o'clock, where it rested for 6 hours. Mr. Fogg and his party had time to visit Salt Lake City, and they spent 2 hours in this very American town. Like many other cities in this country, the town was made up of squares. The town did not have many people, except near the temples. There were many women, which was due to the strange practice of the Mormons. It is worth noting that it is mainly the women of Utah who are anxious to marry. These poor people did not seem happy. Some, the more wealthy, no doubt, wore short, open black silk dresses under a hood. Others wore clothes of an Indian fashion. Passepartout was a little frightened by these women, who in groups tried to please a single Mormon. His common sense pitied, above all, the husband. It seemed to him a terrible thing to have to help so many wives at once. He did not like this idea, and he imagined that the women of Salt Lake City looked closely at him. Happily, he only stayed in there a short time. At 4, the party returned to the train station and boarded the train. Just at the moment when the wheels began to move, cries of "Stop! Stop!" were heard. Trains stopped for no one. The gentleman was a late Mormon. Happily for him, the station had no gates. He rushed along the track, jumped on the rear platform, and fell into a seat. Passepartout, who had been watching this gymnast, approached him and learned that he had run away from a problem at home. When the Mormon could breathe again, Passepartout politely asked him how many wives he had. After seeing him run, Passepartout thought he had 20 at least. "One, sir," replied the Mormon. "One, and that was enough." Chapter 28. Passepartout does not succeed in making anybody listen to reason. The train passed northward for an hour, having completed nearly 900 miles from San Francisco. From this point it went east towards the Wasatch Mountains. Passepartout grew more and more impatient as they went on. Fix wanted to get out of this difficult area and was more anxious than Phileas Fogg himself to set foot in England. The next day, 7th December, they stopped for a quarter of an hour at a station. Snow had fallen during the night, but it did not stop them. The bad weather, however, annoyed Passepartout. He said to himself, "Why did my master make this journey in winter? Couldn't he have waited for the good season to increase his chances?" While the Frenchman worried about the weather, Aouda had fears from a totally different cause. Several passengers had got off at Green River and were walking up and down the platforms. Among these, Aouda recognized Colonel Stamp Proctor, who had been so rude to Phileas Fogg in San Francisco. The young woman went back inside quickly. She liked the man who treated her so nicely, even if he was cold. He did not understand perhaps what she felt. She called it thanks, but it was more than that. It was necessary that Phileas Fogg did not see Colonel Proctor. Aouda waited until Mr. Fogg fell asleep to tell Fix and Passepartout. "That Proctor on this train?" cried Fix. "Well, don't worry. Before he settles with Mr. Fogg, he'll have to deal with me."
"Mr. Fix,"
replied Aouda.
"Mr. Fogg will not allow you to help him. He said that he would come back to America to find this man. Should he see Colonel Proctor, we could not prevent a terrible problem. He must not see him. In 4 days we shall be in New York. Well, if my master does not leave this car during those 4 days, we may hope that chance will not bring him face to face with this American. We must, if possible, keep him from leaving."
Mr. Fogg woke up soon. The detective had an idea. He said to Mr. Fogg, "These are long and slow hours, sir." "Yes," replied Mr. Fogg, "but they pass." "You were in the habit of playing whist," resumed Fix. "On the steamers?" "Yes, but it would be difficult to do so here. I have neither cards nor partners." "Oh, but we can easily buy some cards, for they are sold on all the American trains. And as for partners, if Madam plays—"
"Certainly, sir,"
Aouda replied.
"I understand whist. It is part of an English education."
"I myself can play." "As you please, sir," replied Phileas Fogg, happy to continue his favorite game even on the railway. Passepartout went out to buy the cards. Aouda understood enough, and Mr. Fix was quite good at the game. "Now," thought Passepartout, "we've got him. He won't move." At 11 in the morning, the train reached one of the highest points on the track. After going about 200 miles, the travelers were at last on a plain. In a few more hours the Rocky Mountains were crossed. There was reason to hope, then, that no accident would happen on the journey through this difficult country. The snow had stopped falling, and the air became cold. No animals could be seen. After a comfortable breakfast, Mr. Fogg and his partners started the game again. A whistle was heard, and the train stopped. Aouda and Fix feared Mr. Fogg might decide to look out, but the gentleman said to his servant, "See what the matter is." Passepartout rushed out. 30 or 40 passengers were outside, including Colonel Stamp Proctor. The train had stopped before a red signal. The engineer and conductor were talking with a signalman. The station master at Medicine Bow, the next stop, had sent him on. Passepartout, joining the group, heard the signalman say, "No, you can't pass. The bridge at Medicine Bow is not good, and it would not hold the train." The bridge was a mile away. According to the signalman, the bridge was in bad condition. As careless as the Americans usually are, when they are careful there is usually good reason for it. Passepartout did not want to tell his master this, and did not move. Cried Colonel Proctor. "But we are not going to stay here." "Colonel," replied the conductor, "we have telegraphed to Omaha for a train, but it is not likely that it will reach Medicine Bow in less than 6 hours." "6 hours?" cried Passepartout. "Certainly," said the conductor. "Besides, it will take us that long to reach Medicine Bow on foot." "But it is only a mile from here," said one of the passengers. "Yes, but it's on the other side of the river." "And we can't cross that in a boat?" asked the colonel. "That's impossible. It has rained too much, and the river is too dangerous." The passengers were not happy. They would have to walk 15 miles over a plain covered in snow. Passepartout turned to tell his master when the engineer said, "Gentlemen, perhaps there is a way, after all, to get over." "On the bridge?" "On the bridge." "With our train?" "With our train." Passepartout stopped and listened to the engineer. "But the bridge is unsafe," said the conductor. "No matter," replied the engineer. "I think by going at the highest speed, we might have a chance of getting over." "What?" said Passepartout. But a number of passengers were excited by the idea. Colonel Proctor was very happy and thought the plan was very good. He told stories about engineers jumping their trains over rivers without bridges. "We have 50 chances out of 100 of getting over," said one passenger. 80, 90. Passepartout was astonished, and although he was ready to try anything, he thought the experiment was a little too American. "Besides," he thought, "there's a more simple way, and they haven't thought of it." "Sir," he said to one of the passengers, "I have a simple idea. It might be safer." "What? Safer?" cried Colonel Proctor. This word made him angry. "At full speed. Don't you see? At full speed." "I know. I see," said Passepartout. "But it would be safer." "Who? What? What's the matter with him?" cried several people. "Are you afraid?" asked Colonel Proctor. "I afraid? Very well. I will show these people that a Frenchman can be as American as they." "All aboard!" cried the conductor. They can't stop me from thinking it would be more natural to cross the bridge on foot and let the train come after." But no one heard this good thought. The train backed up for nearly a mile, like a jumper. Then, with a whistle, it moved forward. The train increased its speed, and soon it reached 100 miles an hour. And they passed over. It was like a flash. No one saw the bridge. The train jumped from one side to the other, and the engineer could not stop it until it had gone 5 miles past the station. But the train had just passed over the river when the bridge, completely ruined, fell into the river. Chapter 29. Certain things happen that can only happen on American railroads. They passed the mountains, and the train did not stop that evening. 1,382 miles had been passed over from San Francisco in 3 days and 3 nights. 4 days and nights more would probably bring them to New York. Phileas Fogg was not as yet behindhand. They entered Nebraska at 11 that night and passed Julesburg. It was here that the Union Pacific Railroad was started on the 23rd of October, 1867. At 9 the next morning, the train stopped at the important town of North Platte. Mr. Fogg and his partners continued their game. No one complained about the length of the trip. Mr. Fogg was playing very well. After playing a great hand, he was about to play, when a voice behind him said, "I would play a diamond." Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Fix looked up and saw Colonel Proctor. Stamp Proctor and Phileas Fogg recognized each other at once. "Ah, it's you Englishmen!" cried the colonel. Aouda turned pale. She grabbed Mr. Fogg's arm and pulled him back. Passepartout was ready to jump on the American, but Fix got up and said, "You forget that it is I with whom you have to deal, sir." Mr. Fogg said, "Mr. Fix, pardon me, but this is my business, and mine only." "When and where you will," replied the American, "and with whatever weapon you choose." "Very good. You are going to New York?" "No." "To Chicago?" "No." "To Omaha?" "What difference is it to you? Do you know Plum Creek?" "No," replied Mr. Fogg. "It's the next station. The train will be there in an hour, and we'll stop there in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, several shots could be fired." "Very well," said Mr. Fogg. "I will stop at Plum Creek." "And I guess you'll stay there, too," added the American. "Who knows?" replied Mr. Fogg. He returned to the car. At 11 o'clock, the train reached Plum Creek. As the two started to get off the train, the conductor shouted, "You can't get off, gentlemen!" "Why not?" asked the colonel. "We are 20 minutes late, and we won't stop. I'm sorry. But as you do not have time to fight here, why not fight on the train?" "Well, we are really in America," thought Passepartout. The two fighters and the conductor went to the end of the train. The last car was nearly empty, and the conductor asked the rest to leave for a short time. The car was 50 feet long, which was a good size. Mr. Fogg and Colonel Proctor each had 2 guns. They would begin at the first whistle of the train. Fix and Passepartout were waiting for the whistle when they heard loud cries and gunshots that did not come from the inside the car. Colonel Proctor and Mr. Fogg, guns in hand, ran out of the car. They saw that the train was being attacked by a band of Sioux. 100 of the Indians had jumped onto the train. The Sioux had guns, but so did most of the passengers. The Indians had first gone to the engine. A Sioux chief tried to stop the train, but he didn't know how. Instead of slowing it down, the train went as fast as it could. They needed to stop the train to end the fight. The army was at the next station, but if they passed that, the Sioux would win the battle. The conductor was near Mr. Fogg, and before he was shot, he said, "Unless the train is stopped in 5 minutes, we are lost." "It shall be stopped," said Phileas Fogg. "Stay, monsieur," cried Passepartout. "I will go." The brave man opened the door and slipped under the car. While the fighting continued above him, he used his acrobatic skills. He moved up to the front of the train. There he loosened the safety chains, and the engine raced forward. The train still moved forward for several minutes, but the brakes were used, and at last they stopped. They were less than 100 feet from the Kearney station. The soldiers of the fort had heard the shots. The Sioux had not expected them, and they ran before the train stopped. But when the passengers counted each other at the station, several were missing. This included the courageous Frenchman who had just saved them. Chapter 30. Phileas Fogg simply does his duty. 3 passengers, including Passepartout, had disappeared. Had they been killed? Were they taken prisoners by the Sioux? There were many wounded, but none killed. Colonel Proctor was hurt very badly. He fought bravely, and he was shot between his legs. Aouda was safe, and Phileas Fogg had not been hurt. Fix was slightly hurt, but Passepartout could not be found. Aouda cried and cried. Everyone got off the train. The wheels were red with blood. The last of the Sioux were disappearing in the south. Mr. Fogg did not move. He had a serious decision to make. Aouda looked at him and said nothing, but he understood her. "I will find him, living or dead," he said quietly to Aouda.
"Ah, Mr. Fogg,"
she cried, and she grabbed his hands. Phileas Fogg had sacrificed himself. A single day would make him lose the steamer at New York, and he would lose his bet. But he thought, "It is my duty." The commanding officer of Fort Kearney was there. "Sir," said Mr. Fogg to the officer, 3 passengers have disappeared. Will you follow the Sioux?" "That's very serious. Can I risk the lives of 50 men to save 3? "I don't know whether you can, sir, but you ought to do so." "Nobody here," the officer replied, "has a right to teach me my duty." "Very well," said Mr. Fogg coldly. "I will go alone." "You, sir?" cried Fix. "You would go alone after the Indians?" "Sir, you shall not go alone," cried the officer. "You are a brave man." He called 30 men to join the search. "Will you let me come with you?" asked Fix. "Do as you please, sir, but if you wish to do me a favor, you will stay with Aouda, in case anything should happen to me." Fix did not know what to do. He had followed this man for so long. Would he let him go now? "I will stay," he said. A few minutes later, Mr. Fogg left. But before going, he said to the soldiers, "My friends, I will give you $5,000 if we save the prisoners." It was a little past noon. As Aouda waited, she thought about Phileas Fogg. He had given up his fortune and risked his life for his servant. Fix thought differently. He felt foolish for letting Fogg go alone. He was very angry at himself. "I have been an idiot," he thought. "This man has seen it. He has gone, and he won't come back." He thought of following Fogg. At 2 o'clock, a whistle was heard coming from the east. No train was expected from the east, and there was no time for other help to arrive. It was the engine that had been separated from the train. The engineer was not dead. When he woke up, he saw that the engine was far away, and he knew the train must be in trouble. He started the engine again and went backwards to Fort Kearny. The travelers were happy to see the engine. They could now continue their journey. Aouda ran to the train and asked the conductor,
"Are you going to start?"
"At once, madam."
"But the prisoners, our unfortunate friends."
"I cannot wait," replied the conductor. "We are already 3 hours behind."
"And when will another train pass here from San Francisco?"
"Tomorrow evening, madam."
"Tomorrow evening? But then it will be too late. We must wait."
"It is impossible," the conductor said. "If you wish to go, please get in."
"I will not go,"
said Aouda. Meanwhile, the passengers had boarded the train, including Colonel Proctor. The engineer whistled, the train started, and the train soon disappeared. Several hours passed. The weather was horrible, and it was very cold. Fix did not move from his seat. Aouda kept coming outside to look, even though the storm was very bad. She heard and saw nothing. Evening came, and the group had not returned. Where could they be? The officer was anxious, but he tried to hide it. Night came, and the snow stopped, but it was extremely cold. Fix did not move, but did not sleep. The night passed this way. At dawn, Phileas Fogg had not returned. The officer, who was very worried, did not know what to do. Should he send more soldiers? Should he sacrifice more men? He did not wait long, though. Gunshots were heard, and the soldiers rushed out of the fort. Was it a signal? It was Mr. Fogg. Behind him were Passepartout and the 2 other travelers. They had met and fought the Indians 10 miles south of Fort Kearny. Just before they had arrived, Passepartout and his companions had begun to struggle with the Sioux. The Frenchman beat 3 of them with his fists. They were welcomed with joyful cries. Phileas Fogg gave the reward to the soldiers. Passepartout said to himself, "I cost my master dearly." Fix did not say a word. He looked at Mr. Fogg, and he did not know what to think. Aouda took her protector's hand. She could not speak. Meanwhile, Passepartout was looking for the train. He thought it would be there, ready to start for Omaha. "The train! The train!" he cried. "Gone," replied Fix. "And when does the next train pass here?" said Phileas Fogg. "Not till this evening." "Ah," was all the quiet man said. Chapter 31. Fix, the detective, helps Phileas Fogg. Phileas Fogg found himself 20 hours behind time. The detective went to Mr. Fogg and looked at him directly. He said, "Seriously, sir, are you in a great hurry?" "Very seriously." Is it necessary that you should be in New York on the 11th, before 9 o'clock in the evening, the time that the steamer leaves for Liverpool?" "It is necessary." "And if your journey had not been stopped by the Indians, you would have reached New York on the morning of the 11th?" "Yes, I would have 11 hours before the steamer left." "Good. You are 20 hours behind. 12 from 20 leaves 8. You must regain 8 hours. Do you want to try?" "On foot?" asked Mr. Fogg. "No, on a sled," replied Fix. "On a sled with sails. A man has proposed this method to me." Phileas Fogg and Fix went to meet the American. His name was Mudge, and he lived near the fort. There, Mr. Fogg saw the strange sled. It ran on 2 pieces of wood, like skis, and it had 2 large sails on top. If the wind was good, the sled could travel across the snow faster than a train. Mr. Fogg made a deal with the owner. The wind was good, and it was blowing from the west. The snow was hard, and Mudge thought they would make it to Omaha in a few hours. From there the trains often ran to New York. Mr. Fogg did not want Aouda to be out in the cold, so he suggested that she stay at Fort Kearny. Passepartout would take her to Europe by an easier method. But Aouda refused to separate from Mr. Fogg, and Passepartout was happy. He did not want to leave his master with Mr. Fix. It would be difficult to guess the detective's thoughts. Did he still think Phileas Fogg was a very smart thief? Perhaps Fix had changed his mind about Mr. Fogg, but he was still going to do his duty. At 8 o'clock the sled was ready. The passengers put on heavy coats. The 2 sails were raised, and the sled moved. The distance between Fort Kearny and Omaha is at most 200 miles. If the wind stayed good and they did not have an accident, they might reach Omaha by 1 o'clock. What a journey! It was so cold, the travelers could not speak. The sled was as light as a boat, and Mudge was a skilled driver. All the sails were up, and the wind was strong. "If nothing breaks," said Mudge, "we shall get there." Fogg had offered Mudge a great reward. The prairie was as flat as a sea. It was like a frozen lake. Even the Platte River was not a problem, because it was frozen. Aouda was wrapped in furs and coats. Passepartout's face was as red as the sunset. His good nature was back, and he thought they would make New York in time. Passepartout wanted to grab Fix by the hand. He remembered it was the detective that found the sled. Passepartout did nothing, though. One thing, however, Passepartout would never forget. That was the sacrifice Mr. Fogg had made. Mr. Fogg had risked his fortune and his life. No, his servant would never forget that. About noon they crossed the Platte River. Mudge said nothing, but he knew they were close to Omaha. In less than an hour he closed the sails. The sled went on for a half a mile more. It stopped at last, and Mudge pointed to some buildings covered in snow. "We have got there," he said. Arrived at the station that had many trains to the Atlantic. The group went straight to the Omaha railway station. A train was waiting. They only had time to get into the cars. The train moved quickly across Iowa. During the night, it crossed the Mississippi River. The next day, which was the 10th, at 4 o'clock in the evening, it reached Chicago. 900 miles separated Chicago from New York, but there are many trains. Mr. Fogg moved quickly, and so did the new train. It passed Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey quickly. At last the Hudson River came into view, and at 11:15 in the evening on the 11th, the train stopped at the station. The steamer named China, which was going to Liverpool, had started 3/4 of an hour before. Chapter 32. Phileas Fogg struggles with bad fortune. The China left, and it seemed to carry away Phileas Fogg's last hope. None of the other steamers would suit him. Passepartout was crushed. He could not believe they missed the boat by 3/4 of an hour. It was his fault. Instead of helping his master, he had caused him so much trouble. Mr. Fogg, however, was not angry. He only said, "We will decide what is best tomorrow. Come." They crossed the Hudson River and went to the St. Nicholas Hotel on Broadway Avenue. Mr. Fogg slept well, but Aouda and the others were too anxious to sleep. The next day was the 12th of December. From 7 in the morning of the 12th to 9:15 in the evening of the 21st, there were 9 days, 13 hours, and 45 minutes. If Phileas Fogg had left on the China, he would have reached London in time. Mr. Fogg left the hotel alone and went to look for a boat. There were many boats in the great harbor, but Mr. Fogg could not find a useful one. He seemed about to give up hope when he saw a trading boat. It was ready to depart. Phileas Fogg immediately went to the boat, which was called the Henrietta. There he met the captain. The captain was about 50 years old, with big eyes, red hair, and a thick neck. "The captain?" asked Mr. Fogg. "I am the captain." "I am Phileas Fogg of London."
"And I am Andrew Speedy of Cardiff."
"Where are you going?"
"Bordeaux, in France. I never take passengers, though."
"Will you carry me and 3 other persons to Liverpool?"
"To Liverpool? Why not to China?"
"I said Liverpool."
"No."
"No?"
"No. I am going to Bordeaux, and I shall go to Bordeaux."
"I will hire you."
"No."
"I will buy the boat."
"No."
Phileas Fogg did not show any disappointment. This was not the same situation as at Hong Kong, and this captain was different. Money would not work here. Phileas Fogg had an idea.
"Will you carry me to Bordeaux?" "No, not even for $200.
"I offer you 2,000.
For each person?"
"Yes, and there are 4 of us." Captain Speedy scratched his head. He would make $8,000 without changing his destination. Besides, passengers at $2,000 are no longer passengers. They are valuable goods.
"I start at 9 o'clock,
said Captain Speedy.
"Are you and your party ready?"
"We will be on board at 9 o'clock, replied Mr. Fogg. When Passepartout heard how much this was going to cost, all he could say was, "Oh!" As for Fix, he knew the Bank of England would not get all of its money back. When they reached England, more than £7,000 would have been spent. Chapter 33. Phileas Fogg shows himself to be good in any situation. An hour after, the Henrietta was off. During the day she passed Long Island and moved eastward. At noon the next day, a man came on deck to look at the ocean. It might be thought that this was Captain Speedy. Not at all. It was Phileas Fogg. Captain Speedy was locked in his cabin and was very angry. What had happened was very simple. Phileas Fogg wanted to go to Liverpool, but the captain would not take him there. Then Phileas Fogg said he would go to Bordeaux. 30 hours later, he had used his money to make friends with the sailors, who didn't like the captain, so the Henrietta was off for Liverpool. Oude was anxious, but she said nothing. As for Passepartout, he thought Mr. Fogg's decision was wonderful. If the sea was calm, and if the wind did not change, and if no accident happened, the Henrietta might cross the ocean in 9 days. It is true, though, that this business on the Henrietta might cause Mr. Fogg many problems in England. During the first days, everything was smooth. Passepartout was very happy. He made the crew very happy as well. He made friends with all of them and showed his acrobatic skills. Fix did not understand anything. Taking the Henrietta, buying the crew, and Fogg piloting the boat all amazed and confused him. Fix wondered if Fogg was really going to England at all. On the 13th, they passed Newfoundland, a dangerous area. During the night it became very cold, and the wind changed to the southeast. This was unfortunate. Mr. Fogg did not want to change his direction, so he closed the sails and used more steam. The sea was rough, and the boat slowed down. Passepartout became anxious when the skies became dark. But Phileas Fogg was a great sailor, and he kept the boat safe. The wind did not become as bad as they worried, but the wind stayed in the southeast. The sails were useless. The 16th of December was the 75th day since Phileas Fogg left London. The Henrietta had not been delayed. Half of the journey was finished. In summer, success would have been certain, but in winter, the weather could be bad. On this day, the engineer came to see Mr. Fogg. "You must remember that we've used all of our speeds so far," the engineer said. "We had enough coal to go to Bordeaux at a normal speed, but we don't have enough to go quickly from New York to Liverpool." Now, what would Phileas Fogg do? It was difficult to guess. That evening he called the engineer and said, "Feed the fires until the coal is gone." On the 18th, the engineer said the coal would soon be gone. "Do not let the fires go down," replied Mr. Fogg. At noon, Phileas Fogg brought Captain Speedy up. In a few moments, a bomb appeared on the deck. The bomb was Captain Speedy. "Where are we?" were his first angry words. 707 miles from Liverpool," replied Mr. Fogg. "Pirate!" cried Captain Speedy. "Sell me your boat." "No." "I must burn her." "Burn the Henrietta?" "Yes, at least the upper part. There is no more coal." "Burn my boat?" cried Captain Speedy. "A boat worth $50,000? "Here are 60,000, replied Phileas Fogg. Andrew Speedy's face changed. An American will always be moved at the sight of $60,000. The captain forgot his anger. The Henrietta was 20 years old. It was a great bargain. "And I still have the engine," said the captain. "Yes. Is it agreed?" "Agreed." When Andrew Speedy had taken the money, Mr. Fogg said to him, Don't let this astonish you, sir. You must know that I shall lose £20,000 unless I arrive in London by 9:15 on the evening of the 21st of December. I missed the steamer at New York, and since you refuse to take me to Liverpool—"
"And I did well,"
cried Andrew Speedy.
"I gained $40,000 by it. You know one thing, Captain."
Fogg.
"Captain Fogg? You're almost American. All the wood on the boat is yours."
Very well. Have the seats, beds, and frames pulled down and burn them. On the next day, the 19th of December, they burned even more of the boat, and by the 20th the Henrietta was mostly empty. At this day they saw Ireland. Phileas Fogg had only 24 hours more in which to reach Liverpool.
"Sir,"
said Captain Speedy,
"everything is against you. We are only at Queenstown."
"Ah," said Mr. Fogg. "Can we enter the harbor there?"
"Not for another 3 hours."
Queenstown is the Irish port where the steamers stop. There the mail is taken to Dublin on fast trains, and the fastest boats then take the mail to Liverpool. The mail is then 12 hours faster than the steamers. Phileas Fogg was going to gain 12 hours the same way. Instead of arriving at Liverpool the next evening by the Henrietta, he would be there by noon. He would have enough time to reach London before 9:15 in the evening. The Henrietta entered Queenstown at 1 o'clock in the morning. Phileas Fogg left Captain Speedy and his boat, which was still worth $30,000. The party went on shore at once. Fix wanted to arrest Mr. Fogg right then, but he did not. Why? Had he changed his mind? Did he understand that he was making a mistake? He did not leave Mr. Fogg. They all took the train. At dawn they were in Dublin, and they immediately boarded a steamer. Phileas Fogg at last landed in Liverpool at 20 minutes before 12, 21st December. He was only 6 hours away from London. But at this moment Fix came up and put his hand on Mr. Fogg's shoulder. He showed his warrant and said, "You are really Phileas Fogg?" "I am." "I arrest you in the Queen's name." Chapter 34. Phileas Fogg at last reaches London. Phileas Fogg was in prison. He was to be transferred to London the next day. Passepartout had tried to beat Fix when he saw his master arrested, but some policemen held him back. Aouda did not understand anything. Passepartout explained that honest and brave Fogg was arrested as a robber, and the young woman cried. As for Fix, he had arrested Mr. Fogg because it was his duty, whether Mr. Fogg were guilty or not. Passepartout had a thought. This new misfortune was his fault. If he had told Mr. Fogg the truth, his master would have done something. Instead, Fix used Mr. Fogg's money to follow him around the world. Passepartout cried and cried. Mr. Fogg was really ruined. This arrest was the end. He arrived at Liverpool at 20 minutes before 12 on the 21st of December. He had till 9:15 that evening to reach the Reform Club. That was 9 hours and a quarter. The journey from Liverpool to London was 6 hours. If anyone had entered the jail, they would have found Mr. Fogg calm. Did he feel angry inside? Did he still believe that he would succeed? Mr. Fogg put his watch on the table and watched it. The situation was bad. If he was an honest man, he was ruined. If he was a robber, he was caught. Did he think about escaping? He sat down and opened his journal. He wrote, 21st December, Saturday, Liverpool, 80th day, 11:40 a.m., and waited. The clock struck 1. Mr. Fogg noticed that his watch was 2 hours too fast. 2 hours? If he was on a train right now, he could reach London and the Reform Club by 9:15. At 33 minutes past 2, he heard a noise, and then the door opened. He saw Passepartout, Aouda, and Fix. Fix was out of breath. "Sir," he said, "Sir, forgive me. Most unfortunate mistake. Robber arrested 3 days ago. You are free." Phileas Fogg was free. He walked to the detective and looked at him calmly. He made the only quick action he had ever made in his life. He drew back his arms and punched Fix. "Well hit!" cried Passepartout. "That's what I call a good use of English fists." Fix was on the floor, but he didn't say a word. Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Passepartout went to the station. A special train would be ready at 3 o'clock. It was necessary to make the journey in 5 hours and a half. This would have been easy, but there were delays. When Mr. Fogg stepped off the train, all the clocks in London said 10 minutes before 9. Having made the tour of the world, he was behindhand 5 minutes. He had lost the wager. Chapter 35. Phileas Fogg does not have to repeat his orders to Passepartout twice. The people that lived in Savile Row did not know Phileas Fogg had returned home. His doors and windows were all still closed. He remained calm, ruined, and because of the detective's mistake. After such a long journey, he failed at the end. Only a few pounds were left of the money he brought with him. All he had left were the £20,000 in the bank, and he owed this to his friends of the Reform Club. The tour was so expensive. Even if he would have won, he would not have made much money. Since he lost, he was ruined. A room in the house was set aside for Aouda. She was very sad for her protector. Passepartout knew that sometimes Englishmen tried to kill themselves after so great a failure, so he watched his master carefully. But first of all, he went to his room and turned off the gas burner. The night passed. Mr. Fogg went to bed, but did he sleep? Aouda did not close her eyes. Passepartout watched his master's door all night, like a faithful dog. Passepartout blamed himself for his master's failure. Finally, Passepartout could not hold it in. "My master, Mr. Fogg," he cried, "why don't you shout at me? It's my fault." "I blame no one," replied Phileas Fogg. On this day, Sunday, Phileas Fogg did not go to the Reform Club at 11:30. Why should he go? His friends no longer expected him there. Since Phileas Fogg had not arrived the evening before, Saturday, the 21st of December at 9:15, he had lost his wager. He remained at home. He shut himself up in his room and began settling his business. The hours were long for Passepartout. He was no longer angry at Fix. Fix had made a mistake, but he had done his duty, while Passepartout— This thought made Passepartout sick. At 7:30, Mr. Fogg visited Aouda. He sat down near the fireplace. He sat several minutes without speaking. Then he said, "Madam, will you forgive me for bringing you to England?"
"I, Mr. Fogg,"
replied Aouda. "Please, let me finish. When I decided to bring you far away from your country, I was rich. I was going to give you some part of my money. You would be free and happy. But now I am ruined."
"I know it, Mr. Fogg,"
replied Aouda.
"and I ask you, will you forgive me? Maybe I caused some delay."
"I could not leave you in India. It was not safe,"
"So, Mr. Fogg,
continued Aouda.
you rescued me from death, and you still wanted to do more?"
"Yes, but now I cannot.
"What will become of you?"
I have need of nothing," replied the gentleman.
"At least your friends—"
"I have no friends, madam."
"Your relatives—"
"I have no relatives."
"I pity you, Mr. Fogg. You should not be alone.
She rose and took his hand.
Do you wish to have a woman and a friend? Will you have me as your wife?"
Mr. Fogg rose. There was light in his eyes, and his lips moved slightly. He shut his eyes. When he opened them again, he said, "I love you. Yes, I love you, and I am entirely yours." Passepartout was called. Mr. Fogg still held Aouda's hand. Passepartout understood, and his face became as bright as the sun. Mr. Fogg asked him if it was too late to call the Reverend Samuel Wilson that evening. Passepartout smiled and said, "Never too late." It was 5 minutes past 8. "Will it be for tomorrow, Monday?" "For tomorrow, Monday," said Mr. Fogg, turning to Aouda.
"Yes, for tomorrow, Monday,"
she replied. Passepartout ran as fast as his legs could carry him. Chapter 36. Phileas Fogg's name is once more in the news. James Strand, the real bank robber, was arrested in England on the 17th of December. 3 days before, Phileas Fogg was a criminal. Now he was an honorable gentleman, traveling around the world. The papers started talking again about the wager. His 5 friends at the Reform Club were very nervous. Would Phileas Fogg, whom they had forgotten, appear before their eyes? Where was he right now? They had no news of him. Was he dead? Had he given up? Would he appear on Saturday, the 21st of December, at 9:15 in the evening? A great crowd gathered outside the Reform Club. The police could not control all the people. As the hour approached, the excitement rose. The 5 met in the club. John Sullivan and Samuel Fallentin, the bankers, Andrew Stuart, the engineer, Gautier Ralph, the director of the Bank of England, and Thomas Flanagan, the brewer, all waited anxiously. When the clock said 20 minutes past 8, Andrew Stuart got up. He said, "Gentlemen, in 20 minutes Mr. Fogg's time will be up." "What time did the last train arrive from Liverpool?" asked Thomas Flanagan. "At 23 minutes past 7, replied Gautier Ralph. "The next does not arrive till 10 minutes after 12. "Well," said Andrew Stuart, "if he had taken that train, he would have been here by this time. We can regard the bet as won." "Wait," replied Samuel Fallentin. "Mr. Fogg never arrives too soon or too late." "Why?" said Mr. Stuart. "If I should see him, I should not believe my eyes." At this moment it was 20 minutes to 9. "5 minutes more," said Andrew Stuart. The 5 gentlemen looked at each other. Their anxiety was becoming strong, so they decided to play cards. The clock showed 18 minutes to 9. The players could not keep their eyes off the clock. 16 minutes to 9, said John Sullivan. 1 minute more, and the wager would be won. The players stopped playing. They counted the seconds. At the 40th second, nothing. At the 50th, still nothing. At the 55th, a loud cry was heard in the street, and then clapping. The players stood up. At the 57th second, the door of the club opened. Phileas Fogg appeared, followed by an excited crowd, and calmly said, "Here I am, gentlemen." Chapter 37. It is shown that Phileas Fogg gained nothing by his tour around the world, unless it was happiness. Yes, Phileas Fogg in person. The reader will remember that at 5 minutes past 8 in the evening, Passepartout had been sent out. He was to find the Reverend and hire him for the next day. Passepartout found the Reverend's house, but the Reverend was not home. Passepartout waited 20 minutes, and when he left the Reverend, it was 35 minutes past 8. Without his hat, he ran along the street faster than any man before. In 3 minutes he was in Savile Row again, and he found Mr. Fogg. He could not speak. "What is the matter?" asked Mr. Fogg. "My master," said Passepartout. "Marriage impossible for tomorrow." "Why?" "Because tomorrow is Sunday." "Monday," replied Mr. Fogg. "No, today is Saturday." "Saturday? Impossible." Yes, cried Passepartout. "You have made a mistake of 1 day. We arrived 24 hours ahead of time, but there are only 10 minutes left." Passepartout grabbed his master by the collar and was dragging him along. Phileas Fogg jumped into a cab and promised £100 to the driver. They ran over 2 dogs before they reached the club. The clock showed 9:15 when he appeared in the club. Phileas Fogg had finished his journey in 80 days. Phileas Fogg had won his wager of £20,000. How could this be? The cause of the error is very simple. Phileas Fogg had gained 1 day on his journey because he had always traveled eastward. If he had traveled westward, he would have lost a day. Passepartout's famous family watch, which had always kept London time, would have shown this, if only it had marked the days as well. Phileas Fogg, then, had won the £20,000, but he had spent nearly 19,000 on his way. He divided the 1,000 extra between Passepartout and Fix. He subtracted the cost of the gas from Passepartout's share, though. That evening Mr. Fogg said to Aouda, "Do you still wish to marry?"
"Mr. Fogg,"
she said,
"it is for me to ask that question. You were ruined, but now you are rich again."
"Pardon me, madam. My fortune belongs to you. If you had not suggested our marriage, my servant would not have gone to the Reverend's. I would not have learned of my error, and—"
"Dear Mr. Fogg,"
said the young woman. "Dear Aouda," replied Phileas Fogg. The marriage took place 48 hours later. Passepartout gave the bride away. Phileas Fogg had won his wager, and had made his journey around the world in 80 days. To do this he used every kind of transport: steamers, railways, carriages, boats, sleds, elephants. But what then? what had he really gained by all this trouble? What had he brought back from this long journey? Nothing, you say? Perhaps so. Nothing but a lovely woman who made him the happiest of men. Would you not, for less than that, make the tour around the world?